following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Hey guys, this is Wildcat Chris Harris, one half of America's Most Wanted from TNA Impact. You are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Hi, everybody. This is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
CW Anderson.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the
train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia in Fury. It is great to be with you all once again, and here tonight for me, very excited to talk to my guest at this time because I was there, watching NWA TNA when it first started coming about. And although it was frustrating at the beginning because we didn't have the pay-per-views airing in Australia, I was reading results over and over again, trying to find footage online anywhere that I could. Finally, they started airing TNA over here, and this guy and one of his former tag team partners were certainly one of my favorite teams going. And so without any further ado, at this time, I would like to introduce former 7-time NWA World Tag Team Champion, 3-time NWF Heavyweight Champion, 1-time North American Heavyweight Champion, and of course, 1-time NWA Cyberspace Heavyweight and Tag Team Champion. He is the one and only, the incomparable Wildcat, Chris Harris. How you going, Chris?
I'm great, Carl. Thank you for that introduction. That was awesome.
No worries, bro. I did stumble over my words, but I have had a long day, so.
You got it all
out. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show. And look, I'm playing up to you right here. I've got a Wildcat on my shirt right there. But
I love it, man. I love that. I love the jacket. I like the look.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. But before we start this interview, there's something that I'm not sure if you're aware of it, because I live in Perth, Western Australia, and I'm not sure if you're aware of any of the Australian sporting teams over here, but for the last 30 to 40 years in our National Basketball Association here, the NBL, we have a team here in Perth, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but they've probably been to the final series almost every year that they have been in the league for the last 40 years, and they're actually called the Perth Wildcats. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't know that, man. I should be getting some royalties on those victories,
bro. So just so you know, there have been 2 success stories in the world being a Wildcat, and your story is something that I'm very excited to get into here today, bro. But I thought I'd pop you with that there. First question, as usual on the show, Chris, is how did you become a wrestling fan when you were a young man?
Like a lot of guys back in my day, I became a fan watching it on Saturday mornings. That was the big wrestling shows, the wrestling time. So yeah, I was a kid. I was waking up, and instead of watching the cartoons, I was watching wrestling, man. I was looking forward to that. So I got hooked on that, and that just brought me into the wasn't really pay-per-views back then, but I started watching the big events, and we had Saturday night's main event, and man, I just got so involved in it, and everything that was around me just became wrestling. And I never took it serious at first, but I spent my my school years being a fan, and I guess I had thought about it, but once I graduated high school, I kind of did what I thought everybody was supposed to do. I went to college, and I thought about some other directions, but I just could never get wrestling off my mind, and I really started taking it serious, and spent about 2 years in college still with no direction. And that was it. I had to get out, and I thought, man, if I'm gonna give this wrestling a try, I got to do it now. So I got out of college after a couple of years and did my research, man, and went and got the training.
It's funny. A lot of I've had nearly 70 guests on the show so far. It's so funny how almost everyone's story is pretty similar. Like you think you should go down this road in life, but there's this niggling itch that just won't go away, and eventually you get to a point where you're at this crossroads. And you're like, you know what, I got to go for it. So I really love that story.
Wrestling's such an odd choice in life, and you got parents and family, and your friends are going to school for certain career choices, and that's just I just wasn't into that. I don't know what it was. It was just this wrestling bug was just attached to me, and it's something I'd kind of played around in the backyards like a lot of guys, and just felt like this could really do something. So yeah, man. I mean, even though with everybody telling you, it's a bad idea and you can't do it and you're too small and all this stuff, you just, when you get it in your head, man, and it's in your heart, you just want to take that direction and just go with it, man. You gotta throw everything into it because it is a hard business. So you got to be focused.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I told my dad that I wanted to be a wrestler when I grew up, when I was a teenager. The look that he gave me was like I just told him that my lifelong dream was to be a ventriloquist. So
yeah.
He wasn't very impressed. But lucky for some, they did get into the business and did do well. I'm happy being in this side of it. But I wanted to ask you, okay, you've made this decision now. Where's the first place you go? How do you go about figuring out how to get into the business, how to go get trained?
What I did, and I don't know if this was a very popular thing to do, but the wrestling magazines were pretty big back then, and I kind of did some research. I'm from the Cincinnati area. I did some research around this area as far as some different promotions, and I was looking at training centers, and I found one. It wound up being about 3.5 hours away from my home. But it was a very credible training center, which, that's some of the advice I give to a lot of the young guys now when they say, how do I get into the business? There's so many shitball training centers out there now that just, aren't worth anything, man. You got to do some research and find a good, credible one, maybe look up and see what some of the trainers have done in their career. But yeah, I found one that I was pretty confident with, and went up, did a tryout. Actually, almost a year before I started, I did a little tryout, and I was good. They were interested. I was interested. They said just do your best to put on some weight. I was real skinny, and I had the height, but I was real skinny. And so for the next year, I pretty much just saved up everything I could, and dove right into it, man. I only did it once a week. I know a lot of guys, if it's close to home, they get to train maybe 2-3 times a week. With a job, I was only doing it once a week, but I was driving 3.5 hours up, getting my ass beat for about 3 hours, and then driving 3.5 hours back, and having to be back at my regular job about 5-6 o'clock in the morning. So it was a rough road, man. But I got some good training out of it. I kind of had a 2-part training because back then I was trained very well physically. They trained me well on reversals and holds and counter holds and things like that. So I could get in the ring and I could call a match while I was in there and do really well at that. What I was lacking was, I guess in a nutshell, the psychology of wrestling. And I wound up getting in touch with a promotion more close to home. And I found out, I went to one of their events and started talking to them about it, told them I had been trained and I had a few matches under my belt. And so I got in with that promotion, but I also continued my training there. And that was with Roger Ruffin in Cincinnati. He had a history. He refereed with the WWF for a lot of years, late 80s, early 90s. And that's when I really learned, it wasn't just what you could do in a match, but it was what you could do and when you could do it and when it made sense. And I just learned so much as far as, everything that goes up here. I was good physically, but I just needed to train my brain and learn the do's and don'ts of wrestling, the etiquette, things like that. So all well-rounded with both training facilities, but it made me a better wrestler, and then it was just a matter of getting the experience under my belt.
Absolutely. And I do my research, but sometimes the internet can lie. I need to know if this is true. Did you debut? Did you debut in November of 1994? Is that correct?
That is correct, and that was with the promotion that was north of Cincinnati. I debuted November of '94, and I think I had like 3 matches with that promotion before I got hooked up with the Cincinnati promotion. And I remember talking to my original trainer, and I said, "Hey, I got this local promotion. I'd like to, I can get some experience and it's close to home." And he said, "Well, tell him you've had a couple dozen matches under your belt." And so I completely lied to the promoter here, and they said, "How much experience do you have?" And I told him I had a couple dozen matches, and I'd had 3. So it's funny. I haven't in a long time, but I remember a few times looking back at some of those early matches. I was awful, man. It's just it's almost embarrassing to think of where I was, and they thought I was good. I had since it was my hometown, I had the hometown crowd behind me. So of course promoters look at that, if you're getting over. So I had the people with me, but man, the matches were just awful. So looking back, it was embarrassing, but hey, I got their attention, so it worked.
Humble beginnings, of course. In my research, the first match that I could find any sort of result about was on the 5th of May 1995, teaming with Shane Andrews to take on the Glamour Boys at Peel's Palace in Erlanger, Kentucky. Is that correct? Do you remember that at all?
I don't remember that match, but the Peel's Palace events were the ones I did start doing. So we were running there once a month and among other cities. But the Peel's Palace, I don't know, a lot of people probably won't remember, but the Smoky Mountain promotion that Jim Cornette ran, that was one of their spots. And right about the same time I came in, for whatever reason, I think that might have been when Smoky Mountain was having a lot of trouble, maybe, just days or weeks before they shut down. But they pulled out of an event that was advertised. And so the Peel's Palace had advertised a wrestling event. So Smoky Mountain pulled out. So they needed a last minute replacement. That's when this promotion stepped in. And that was the event that I went to where I made my connection. So Peel's Palace was a huge event for us every month, went on for several years. That match in particular, I don't remember, but I'm sure if you did your research, man, that sounds about right.
Cool, bro. And for those out there, it might be blowing your mind that Chris Harris was wrestling in the mid-90s. He didn't just show up all of a sudden in TNA. There's a journey to get there, and this is my favorite part: the journey to get to these places that you become famous for. And another thing that I found in my research, the 20th of August, 1996 in Columbus, Ohio, you worked 2 tapings for WWF Superstars. And strangely enough, they're both against one Justin Hawk Bradshaw, a.k.a. JBL, and the next was against Farouk, a.k.a. Ron Simmons, who would later on become a very famous tag team themselves. But how was that experience so early in your career to be working on a WWF Superstars taping with these 2 big guys?
Yeah, very interesting to look back and see that the 2 singles matches were, just a few years later, they'd become one of the best tag teams there was. But so I was getting, a lot of people think that success happens overnight, man. Once you get to a big promotion, but there's a lot, especially back then. There's a lot of paying your dues and a lot of getting experience under your belt. I guess let's see, most of '95 and early '96, I was still connected with the Northern promotion, and they were big on. I guess they had their connections. Anytime WWF was in town, this was back in the days of the enhancement talent. But they were one of the groups that they were called to bring in enhancement talent, and so I was asked about it, and that was all new to me. It ignorant to say this now, but being that I was doing well on certain shows, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go on TV and get my ass beat and look, you know, make the promotion look bad and that. But I sought advice from Roger Ruffin, the guy that was, you know, running the promotion, and him being a WWF guy, he advised me. He said, take the opportunity. He said, go in. He said, don't even think about the promotion or here or anything like that. Go in, get your experience, and you know, and learn from it. So yeah, I went with the guys and we went on the road, and I think we did. It might have been like a 3-day taping. I think we did a pay-per-view in Cleveland, and then I guess a Monday and Tuesday taping. You probably know the cities. I think you said Columbus, and
yeah.
Yeah, so we were in there, and I think my first match was with Farouk, and then the second night was Bradshaw, and you know, as rough and tough as those guys are, and they have a reputation, you know, I think I was actually lucky. They were both new in WWF at the time, so they weren't looking to ruffle any feathers, I don't think. You know, I think if I'd had either one of them, especially JBL, if I'd have had him, you know, later on in the, you know, 99 or something like that, I think he'd have probably, you know, broke me in half. But I was actually lucky to just get a chipped tooth. That boot and clothesline from JBL really knocked the hell out of me. But yeah, for the most part, man, it was a great experience. They were cool to work with. I got in there. I still go back and watch that sometimes just for a laugh. But yeah, I got my first experience there, you know, in 96. You know, I was enhancement talent, so there was really no direction to go. It was just a one-off thing. But it was a great experience. It was great to be in the back of the big time of, you know, something I had dreamed of. And so it was very exciting. Got to see some of the top stars. One interesting note, though, I remember when they were kind of picking the matches. You know, you think I might have drawn the short straw with getting Farouk and Bradshaw, but some of the other options were Sid, Vader.
Oh, God.
You know, I mean, you really weren't going to win either way. So, but yeah, it was a great experience, man. So I recommend that for anybody that has a chance to do that. You know, go, especially early in your career, go do it, get the experience. You know, and you know, you can only learn from it.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had plenty of the guys on the show that have you know, done the old wrestling challenges and look at the board and they find out that they're against the Road Warriors that day. So it can get worse. So you plug along, you know, in the 90s up, and I'm skimming forward here to the 19th of January 2000 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I think I got that pronunciation correct. You faced Buzzkill, aka Brad Armstrong, in your WCW debut. How did this opportunity come about to work with WCW?
During the late 90s, I was doing a lot of the area around here. It was Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Indiana. I had an opportunity to go to Tennessee, to Nashville, which even though the territory days had been gone, Nashville was a really big territory, you know, Nashville, Memphis, those kind of areas. So I had a connection. So I was brought down to Nashville to do that. They were doing local TV down there. So I went down there, and a guy by the name of Burt Prentice, he was pretty well known around then. So I started working for him, and again, got their attention. They were really happy with me, started bringing me down every week. Well, Burt was really close with Terry Taylor, who at the time was talent relations for WCW. So again, it was a similar situation to the WWF deal. They wanted to bring some guys in, but they were also looking, you know, this was 2000. So, you know, we're just over a year away from it shutting down, but they were bringing guys in to do a lot of security. So we were going to do security for Nitro and Thunder, but we were going to get some matches. And back then they had the WCW Saturday night shows, the Sunday Worldwide, I think it was called. And the difference with this was, you know, even though I guess we were considered enhancement talent, these were much more competitive matches. So it wasn't just a squash. But I do have to correct you on one thing. My first match in WCW was with Booker T.
Oh, okay.
It was later on that I did Buzzkill, who was Armstrong.
Brad Armstrong.
Brad.
Yeah.
Which everybody only has good things to say about Brad. It was great working with Brad. But yeah, my first match there was with Booker T.
Okay.
Booker was great. He it was a competitive match. But all the matches that we did, I mean, that was the thing, to me, that was a step up from WWF. Not only had I had experience under my belt, but it was competitive matches. We were on the shows that were, featuring new talent, like the Worldwide and the Saturday Night. But then we were doing security, and even back then it was called R&B Security. I don't know if you remember that, but that was that was when Russo and Bischoff were in charge, and so they had their own security team. So we kind of made a joke that it was called Run and Bump Security because every time we ran in, we get knocked on our asses. So, but again, great experience. I did that most of 2000, being paid per event, and there was always a group of us being sent in. Just being paid per event. I was one of the regulars, so I was actually making some decent money just on the level I was at. And then in October of 2000, I was one of the very, very few out of the groups that were being brought in. I was offered a contract by Terry Taylor, so I actually signed a WCW contract in October of 2000.
Right. Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, it is awesome, but at the same time, there's only a few more months left, which no one could have figured out at that point. But I did find it interesting. Yeah, exactly. Your next matches after, the Booker and the Brad Armstrong matches, I thought it was interesting to note that you wrestled on the final edition of WCW Saturday Night before they made it a morning clip show. But you faced Chuck Palumbo on March 29th. So the mothership's gone now, but you got to be on the final episode of that, believe it or not. And then May 9th, this is amazing. You wrestled Curt Hennig on Worldwide. I think that is, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I got to bring up Curt Hennig's name. Tell me, how was that working with him?
Oh, that was great, man. I mean, all those matches I had in WCW, only made me better. I worked with a lot of the young talent like Chuck Palumbo, but I also got to get in there, Brad Armstrong, Booker, Shane Douglas, and of course, Curt Hennig. That was my first meeting with Curt. Later on, we become friends, but that was my first meeting. And again, cool as can be, just kind of chilled. And, a lot of people ask me what those days were, leading up to the end. I wasn't on the inside. I wasn't a higher talent, so I really don't know. But who knows what these guys were thinking if they saw the writing on the wall. But it was a pleasure to get to work with Curt. I've looked back at that match, and it was a lot of fun. And it's actually an honor to take the Perfect Plex. So so that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, that was a great experience. Working with all those guys was great, and it just led me to a good friendship with him later on.
Yeah, that's cool, bro. Yeah, and as I was saying before, just a few other matches, just to because I like to just name drop all this, just to show how
going down memory lane, man.
Just to show how great I am at research. May 9th on Worldwide against the Mamalukes, and then of course May 23rd against Shane Douglas. 23rd with the Mamalukes, then the week later against Shane Douglas. So that's pretty cool. 22nd of August 2000 against Elix Skipper for the Cruiserweight title in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Worldwide. In my research, look, again, I was wrong about the Booker T, Brad Armstrong thing, but this appears to be the actual final match that you have in WCW. If I am wrong, please tell me. I know that you do something at Halloween Havoc 2000. Would this be your last match? Are we waiting to be booked for something else, or is my research just completely wrong here?
No, you other than the Booker T, man, I can't argue with you. You may have all of it down. Those a lot of those names I forgot. It's kind of funny to look back and think that I had a singles match with Elix, considering we had some really good tag team awards later on. But I don't know when the matches started winding down. I'm assuming we were still doing security.
Yeah.
But, Yeah, around that time, I guess it had to be around Halloween Havoc. But yeah, man, I started doing a lot of Sting took some time off, and it was just the look, man. I have to give it to the look, And even though his hair was a little shorter then, I had that crow look that a lot of people saw, and they immediately scooped me up for that, and I started doing some fill-ins for Sting. They had me. There were some times I was in the rafters, so you just got a distant shot, so it looked like him. There were some times I came out of a coffin, which on times like that they were doing the strobe light, so you couldn't really get a good look to see if it was him or not. And then of course the main one, man, the one I'm most proud of was the Halloween Havoc.
Tell me a little bit about that. That must have been a fun experience being able to dress as Sting and be on pay-per-view for it.
Yeah, man. Looking back, it kind of got watered down because there were so many Stings that match. But I'd like to think that mine was the most memorable. There was a lot of them that kind of interfered, and Sting took care of them. But then at the end, I came from under the ring, man, just broke through the canvas and pulled him down underneath. And, we fought back out and gave him a guitar shot because he was wrestling Jeff Jarrett at the time. I gave Sting a guitar shot. But yeah, that was a load of fun, man. I gave everything I could because even though that wasn't a match, they're still looking to see what kind of a performance you give. So, I made sure with Jeff and Sting that everything was cool. And yeah, what an experience, man. They hiding underneath the ring, they had a little monitor down there, so I knew exactly when to pop up. But great experience, man. And the great part is we're over 20 years later, and we're still talking about it. So that was great. And the bonus of it is Sting actually painted my face for a lot of these. And so as he's painting, he, from Sting's mouth, he looked at me, he said, "This is so weird. This is like looking in a mirror." And I took that as an extreme compliment, man, for Sting to say something like that. So very cool experience.
Absolutely, bro. I read somewhere, I believe it was Terry Taylor. Again, I might be wrong. Country singer gimmick for you in WCW. Is that true?
Yeah, man. A lot of people don't remember this because I guess it's been so long, but in 2000, again, I was wrestling in the Nashville area, and one of the artists, Clay Davidson, was doing a song, and it was kind of related to any entertainment business, but they picked wrestling. So the video is all about wrestling. His song just kind of revolved around, putting on your act, when you go out in front of the people, but you're a real human when you come back. And, but anyway, they did some searching around for the wrestler they wanted to focus in this video. And they went to a couple shows, and they were actually looking at, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, I think he was pissed off back in the day, but Mike Rapata, the Colorado Kid. I don't know what a lot of people remember that name, but he was the big name back then. I think he might have even been NWA world champion at the time, but he was the one they were really focusing on. They're like, "Hey, take a look at this guy. Take a look at this guy. Hopefully we get him in the video." And they came to the event, and they took an eye to me, man. And they started asking questions about me. So Bert Prentice, the promoter, put me in contact with them, and we made a deal. And we filmed this video. Turned out awesome, man. It went to #1 on CMT. It's a really cool video, cool song, and it was all a timing thing. That was coming out while I was in WCW. So in my eyes, I looked at it like, man, this, how many times can you say in wrestling, something's never been done? And to make a debut as a character from a country music video, I don't know the details that would go into it, but it's so unique and creative. It's something different. I thought it was going to be awesome. Now I'm not much into being a country music singer or anything like that, but hey, neither was Jeff Jarrett. So, maybe we could have made something work, but they actually talked about debuting that video, debuting me as a character, and actually doing a program with Jeff. So, I was excited about it, but it really didn't last long, and they kind of shut it down. And again, these were towards the dying days, so I don't know if it was politics behind the scenes. I'm not really sure, but I do know that I was told that it was almost too country, too southern kind of thing, and which I thought was BS because everybody always looks at WWF as the New York Northern promotion, and WCW was a Southern promotion. So, I mean, how can it be too Southern? It just didn't make any sense. So I thought that was BS. I think it was more politics going on with the company, but maybe they just weren't looking to build new stars. I really don't know. But yeah, that was talked about, man. And I think that was a missed opportunity. I think even though we were months away from closing, it would have been a pretty cool debut for the short time that it would have gone on to.
Absolutely, man. And you know what? I've just realized that I lied earlier. It was the match with Elix was not the last one. 18th of February 2001. Apparently, you wrestled Kid Romeo in the Nashville Auditorium for a dark match on the pay-per-view Super Brawl Revenge. So I just realized that was further down in my notes, but
that actually does sound more like it, because I think that they were winding down the TVs, and again, you just kind of look at these steps. I think they wanted to do something with me. There was just more going on with the promotion of and them trying to keep it up. So yeah, I remember that. Of course, the Nashville. A lot of us were brought in for whatever reason, security or anything, and they gave me a dark match, and I don't think they're looking. And if I remember correctly, you probably have in your notes, but I think they put me over. So
yeah,
they might have been looking to, if it had been around, if it had lasted any longer, I think there could have been an opportunity. But yeah, I got a dark match with Kid Romeo. He wasn't great to work with, but we got through it, and I love the experience, and I was in front of Nashville, so Nashville was familiar with me at the time, so that was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm glad that I found that in my notes, because it makes so much sense now to what you were saying about the gimmick idea that was there. They might have been thinking, okay, let's look at some guys, because this thing might continue if Eric Bischoff is able to get his investors involved. Let's look at some guys here and there. I know that the Shane twins actually did a dark match on the last edition of Thunder, which makes no sense at all, but that maybe they were still hopeful that something might transpire. So
I think everybody was hopeful at that time. I didn't know what the opportunities were. I probably didn't even know that Bischoff was in the running or anything like that. I didn't know that until later on. But I think everybody was hopeful, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things that ever happened, to be honest. But it's okay, because if it didn't happen,
and somebody in my spot, man. Growing up, you got two big promotions, and just to make it to one of the big two and sign a contract was a dream.
Yeah.
So to sign with one of those companies and then 6 months later it's out of business, it's like, what the hell? You got to be kidding me. What? So yeah, that wasn't great luck at the time.
No, I've had a few other guys like Air Paris and Alan Funk on the show, and Alan especially was starting to get on pay-per-view as his own character and was getting that push, and then all that hard work. Now you're back in WWE developmental. That's some heartbreaking stuff. And speaking of the end of WCW, I wanted to find out where you were when you found out that the company was now all over, and when you found out that the WWF were either going to buy your contract or elect not to.
To the best of my recollection, you were saying the Kid Romeo match was February, and they were done in April. So I'm guessing that they probably, because I know they stopped bringing us in towards the end, before it was even over. So, probably a cost-cutting thing. They're not going to start paying a lot of guys for doing security, and like you said, the Saturday night shows and things like that were done. So I probably got that dark match because it was in Nashville. They didn't have to worry about travel expenses and things like that. But I'm guessing that we weren't being brought in after that. So those last couple months, I wasn't with the company. I was still under contract, but I wasn't with the company. And I'm assuming I found out just like everybody else, man, tuning in on that Monday night and seeing the simulcast, and realizing what had happened. And, I think I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And of course, as we know, a lot of the top stars, had time left on their contract. So they were just going to sit it out. And guys on my level pretty much didn't have a chance. Yeah. I think guys like Elix and Allen could probably tell you too, a lot of those guys from the power plant, they were sent to developmental for WWF or WWE. And I guess they were going to kind of, pick and choose from there. But, WWE had so much to pick from. They had a whole company to shuffle through. So they took a lot of the guys they thought they could make stars out of, Booker being one of them. I think Hugh Morris came on right after that too. So they were taking some of the mid-card, not necessarily mid-card. Booker was champion, but I think they kind of, took a handful of those guys to try to make stars out of them while all the other guys sat at home collecting a paycheck. And guys on my level didn't really have a chance, man. It was starting from ground up again, man, and try to work your way up.
Yeah, it's just such a crazy time in the wrestling business. You also had ECW which was there. They were doing seemingly well, and then within the space of a few months, both them and WCW are gone. So there's probably this influx of ECW and WCW guys hitting the indie scene. And I noticed on the 14th of May 2001. So this is only like 2 months after the end of WCW. You get to work with X Factor, which is X-Pac, Just Incredible, and Albert, teaming with Doug Basham and Rob Williams on an episode of WWF Jacked. I'm guessing this was maybe an enhancement thing. Maybe they were in the area, or you were in the area, or was this a dark match? Was this an opportunity? How did you look at this?
If I remember right, I think they were in Cincinnati. So.
Okay.
And however the connection was made, I can't even remember, but yeah, since it was just a couple months after, even though it was an enhancement match, I looked at it like, hey, maybe if they knew I was with WCW, maybe they could possibly take a look. I don't know if that was their idea at the time or not. I don't really remember. I mean, as 6-man, it's hard to really, have somebody stand out, but, we got to work with them. That was just a one night off, but it was an opportunity. I got to go back in and work with those guys, and it was in Cincinnati. But nothing ever came of it. Never heard anything. So again, like you had said, it was just a couple months after, so they were still shuffling through, 2 companies that had shut down and kind of picking and choosing. So. Like I said, man, just a matter of, hitting the road again and hoping something comes out of it.
Yeah, of course. And you worked with the NWF and USA Wrestling a lot during this period of time. And I thought it was interesting to note that you were on the Main Event Championship Wrestling inaugural show against Curt Hennig for their championship, which I know that company didn't last very long, on August 11th, 2001. I know that this... At the time, look, this is a long time ago now, but I remember reading on the internet that this company had talked about we're going to be the next big thing, which many companies have come out saying that they were going to be the next big thing. Right. But do you remember this at all? This is another opportunity where you get to work with Mr. Curt Hennig.
Oh, I remember it, man. Like you just said, there was a lot of companies that wanted to be the next one. We've heard... even still to this day, a lot of companies, want to start up and make a big impact. And this was one of them. So I was one of the guys brought in. I can't remember how the connection was. But we were, me and a few guys, one being Abyss. He was with me as well. He was from the Cincinnati area, so we had come up together. But we got hooked into the Main Event Championship Wrestling. It was out of Evansville, Indiana, run by John Collins. And we were hoping this was going to be the next thing, man. This guy talked big, talked about running shows, talked about, big paydays. And he had brought Curt Hennig in. He brought Barry Windham in. So we did some events in Evansville. I think that might have even been a weekly thing. But then, they were talking about doing this big event. in the ECW arena. You know, there was going to be a lot of ECW stars on that, but also featuring some of the main event stars. Again, Abyss was on that card, and I got to work with Curt, and that was the start of our friendship. You know, I got to work with him again, and I'm sure I reminded him about our WCW match, but that was, again, great experience, great to work with him. That crowd, you know, I've worked there a few times in that building, but yeah, that crowd's a different kind of crowd, man. They, you know, I think the idea was to build me as a new star, and Curt was going to be that, you know, big heel that he's always been, but they were not about that, man. They shit all over me, and that place erupted for Curt. So it was, and it's one of those matches where you just kind of, you know, you shuffle it around while you're in there, man. And Curt was a pro at that. And then I'm telling you, man, before he even put the perfect plex on me, just hooking me for the perfect plex, that place went nuts. So it was a great feeling, you know, even when you're on the losing end, man, when you know you're making something happen, it was still pretty cool. So it was a great experience. Yeah, that company, yeah, it was all talk. I mean, it didn't last long, and I remember there was times Abyss, myself, and a couple other guys, I mean, we had to search John Collins out at his house. We'd show up at his house just to make sure we got paid, and you know, we'd make him go to the bank, and I mean, it was awful. Wow. So yeah, it was a bad idea. You know, it was great at the time, I guess, because in between the WCW and you know, when TNA started, you know, I was doing whatever I could to make some money. You know, I had the feeling of being a full-time wrestler from WCW, and you know, when you get that feeling, man, and a lot of these guys can tell you that, you know, the last thing you want to do is go back to the regular job, you know, go back to, you know, regular shift and all that kind of stuff. So I was, you know, doing everything I could, and I was married at the time. You know, my wife was very supportive, but, you know, of course she's being the voice of reason, being like, you know, hey, if we're not going to make money with wrestling, we got to do something else. So, you know, I'm trying to please her all the while, you know, trying to, you know, climb for my dream again. So those few paychecks that I would get from the main event championship wrestling, even though it didn't last long, you know, I still got them. It carried me through a little bit, and got me through that year until 2002 when things changed.
Things certainly did change, Chris. There's the formation of America's Most Wanted. And I know, I believe Bob Ryder was somebody who was totally in your corner trying to get you guys a shot with this new upstart NWA TNA. When you first heard about NWA TNA and first had the opportunity, what were your thoughts on the whole thing? Were you hopeful that this would last a bit longer than MECW? And yeah, just tell me about that whole time period of just trying to get an opportunity there. Yeah,
man. So, yeah, I'm just, you know, we're struggling through, me and a lot of guys struggling through. I guess I was doing as many indies as I could just to make some money. And Burt Prentice from Nashville, you know, I was still working with him. He had me on some promotional tours too to help his promotion. I was doing a lot of live events. When I say live events, I don't mean wrestling. I was just going around, just talking about talking to schools with the kids, you know, for events, just trying to promote. And he was trying to, you know, float me some cash for doing things like that. So I was still big into the Nashville scene. As was James Storm. He was like the local hero there, the same way I was in Cincinnati. So me being brought down, I was a big baby face. He was a big baby face. We actually had somewhat of a program, a feud on the indies in Nashville. So we were very familiar with each other. We were friends. We fought, you know, many times, had a great little run there. And yeah, we hear this thing about the promotion coming up, and it's funny when people ask me about that because, you know, I always have to bring up some of the other promotions that start and fail. And so you hear about another one, and you just don't want to get your hopes up. You're like, okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. And you still want to be a part of it, but you just don't want to be let down like that again. So there's talk about this promotion starting. Now, one thing that was had somewhat of a positive was that Jeff was in charge of it. And of course, he had history with his dad and, running their territory. So I've kind of felt like, it had some good legs to stand on. Jeff and Jerry, certainly knew how to run a promotion, whether or not this whole new weekly pay-per-view concept was going to work. That was a little different. But hey, man, we were ready for it. The opportunity, there was talk of it. We were interested. And it all came down to, it was June 1st of 2002, which is funny because, just later that month is when TNA started. But June 1st was the date in Nashville. It was one of Burt Prentice's shows, and the TNA staff, if you want to call it, as they were building a staff, everybody was kind of there just to work out the kinks, and they were doing some test runs for people. I know a lot of the agents, producers were there. I guess kind of getting a feel for it. I know they were trying out the broadcast team. I remember Don West, who wound up with TNA for years, they were giving him a tryout for the matches. But yeah, Storm and I were on that card, and Burt had this idea. He said, he wanted to put two of his best guys in there and let them show what they could do. So he actually put us against each other, which was interesting because, like I said, we were two of the top baby faces. So we were against each other, but he had a great idea. It turned out great because Storm and I, we wanted to put everything we could into that. We were familiar with each other. We had chemistry, and we went out. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite matches. It was an awesome match, and those guys were watching. And him and I were very proud of it. We came back, and again, I'm sure they were shuffling around so much trying to get this company started. But all I remember was looking at Jeff, and again, I'd known him from WCW, but I looked at Jeff just for, approval, and he gave me a wink, and he said, "We'll be in touch." And that week, Bob Ryder contacted Storm and I. So we were in, man. And, we gave them a good performance. They were happy, and they were interested. So we were ecstatic.
That's great, bro. Yeah. And the 19th of June, 2002, it's the second weekly pay-per-view. You take on the Rainbow Express, which is obviously Alan Funk, who was known as Bruce, and Lenny Lane. How did you guys feel your first outing together on TNA's weekly pay-per-view?
We were just happy to be there, man. It was a big production. We were in Huntsville, Alabama. And it was kind of interesting because, just showing up, we were excited. But I saw a lot of like the production crew and things like that. They were a lot of guys from WCW. So there was, I think that the connections Jeff had with WCW, and a lot, you got to remember, a lot of those guys got, they lost their jobs too,
yeah,
production. And, just, a lot of the TV guys, they were all out of a job too, because WWF, they had their own staff. They didn't need them. So, they brought these guys in. They knew what they were doing. I remember Keith Mitchell was there. He was the famous director from WCW and went on with TNA. I love Keith. He's awesome. But they were they were in a stage where they were putting everybody in place. They brought in some top names because you have to have the names to get the attention. But TNA was very big on building new stars. And I give them credit for that. They were looking to do that. Now, this goes back to when they were interested in Storm and I. I think they knew they wanted us to be part of the company. They knew they wanted to do something. They just didn't know what. They had so many moving pieces. So I think they just had this idea. I guess because we had the match together, they just looked at it like, hey, they don't know what the hell to do. Throw these guys together and let's see what happens. And so they kind of worked a little angle in the back. It was just a little 2-minute skit where they threw us together and went out and wrestled the Rainbow Express, and they put us over. And again, it was in that area where people kind of knew who Storm and I was, and yeah, it was on fire, man. We loved it, and we weren't sure where we were going to go with it. That was just a nightly thing at the time. I think you mentioned what was the tag team that you mentioned had a dark match in WCW?
The Shane Twins.
Shane Twins, yeah. I think one of our next matches was with the Shane Twins.
When they dressed as two like penises.
Yeah, that was them. Never understood that, but hey, we wrestled a couple dicks, so but yeah, again, and I don't think they knew what to do. They were just going to see what worked. Throw Storm and Harris together and let's see what works. And Storm and I looked at it. I think a lot of guys, may have gotten frustrated. Of course, Storm and I were, singles guys, all through, our indie careers. So we were thinking, hey, we're going to be big stars here in TNA, be big single stars. And that's just not how the business works, man. What they give you, you got to run with. And Storm and I looked at it and we tried to have a great attitude about it. We said, man, if they're going to put us in a tag team, we are going to go out and we're going to be the best tag team we can be. And we just kind of adapted things that we had learned, even though our experience was in singles. We went back to what we grew up on, man. We were fans of the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Horsemen, Heart Foundation, Bulldogs, all those top teams from the, late 80s, early 90s. We just kind of, applied what we had learned in tag team wrestling and went out for it, man. And we wanted to get their attention and we did. We went out, we wanted to be the best tag team we could be. And we got some eyes rolling.
Yeah, man. Like, honestly, when I first saw you guys, it was like, wow, like, look at these two guys go. It's almost like it's a throwback to the old school tag teams, but you've got a bit of new school in there as well. And it just seemed like immediately it seemed like America's Most Wanted had been together for years. And in just under 3 months after that first tag match with the Rainbow Express, yourself and James Storm become the NWA World Tag Team Champions. You win a tag team gauntlet for the Gold Battle Royal, and then you both vanquish Brian Lee and Ron Harris to become the champions. Now, okay, here we go. Now you must be feeling pretty good. You've just won the NWA World Tag Team titles.
Yeah, man, that was, again, some of the names I just brought up to you, those are the guys that had those belts. So for us to be able to, it didn't matter where we went from here. We were in the record books then. And, you brought up, getting the attention and of, when as we were week by week, we were getting our matches in, and a lot of people were, and you made a mention that, we kind of combined the old school and adapted it into that day and age of wrestling. What a lot of people don't remember, I think one of the reasons we stood out so much was, this was 2002. If you look back at some of the, and you got to go back to, the only promotion around was WWE. All they were doing at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of established tag teams then. They were really big on taking two singles guys, throwing them together. They'd win the tag team titles the next week. Then they'd split up 2 months later. They'd be feuding. It was just every tag team you saw was two singles guys thrown together. So the art of tag team wrestling was kind of lost at the time. So I think when we got put together and we kind of reverted back to the old school and applied it to the 2002 era, I think people were like, they kind of found their love of tag teams again, because tag team wrestling can be, it's so much fun to watch, man. You got instead of two guys in there, you got double. You got four guys in there that can make magic, and we were out there, doing just that, and bringing a little bit of the old school back, but also adding the excitement of the 2002 era, and I think that's what really people found the love of tag teams again. And TNA was big on building the tag teams, as well as at the time the X division we were doing. So yeah, man, I think those first few months they kind of saw what they had and they were going to take a chance on us, and we did that gauntlet for the gold. And I think the match we actually won was with Brian Lee and Ron Harris, and for our first tag team titles, it was. We could never predict where we were going to go from there, but like I said, man, we had that was a mark where we had established America's Most Wanted.
Absolutely, and now that you mention it, it always drove me insane how the WWE's tag team division was really good in the late 90s, very, very early 2000s, but it got to a point where it just seemed like they forgot how it worked, and they just started throwing people together, and it didn't mean anything anymore. But then on the other side of the coin, you got NWA, TNA, you've got America's Most Wanted, Disciples of the New Church, Triple X, The Hot Shots, Swinger and Diamond, Three Life Crew, The Naturals. Like they really gave a shit, as plainly as I can say. They really gave a shit about making a division and having there be this group of teams, and it could be endless, because there are so many great teams that, like, it'll never get boring, because WWE, you know, they might only have 2 established teams and a bunch of thrown together teams, so nothing means anything. But there's so many teams that TNA had during this time period, and you know, you and James end up with 6 tag team title wins throughout this run. And I know this is a very broad kind of time period to ask about, but this whole run with all these teams, what are your fondest memories? And are you all very well aware that this tag division was whooping WWE Tag Division's ass?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to be naive enough to say that, you know, hey, we, you know, our promotion was, you know, going to compete or surpass I mean, WWF was the promotion. So we were just happy to be on board, and you know, we were making you know, funny word, but we were making an impact in the wrestling world. I think they eventually saw that the pay-per-view concept wasn't going to stick. I think it definitely got everybody's attention. Those that, you know, wanted to tune in and pay their $9.99 a week, I think they were into it, and we had a loyal fan base. A lot of people look back on it now and think, you know, hey, we had just a minor percentage of the wrestling world, but hey, you know, we're an upstart company, man. I mean, we'll take what we can get, and you know, the wrestling world was talking. Everybody the eyes were on us because we were the only other thing out there. But no, some of my fondest memories, man. I mean, you're right. That is a broad question, but we had some great matches. I mean, thank you for naming off all those teams, man. We had some great matches, and a lot of great memories with those guys. I remember, you know, you brought up Swinger and Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger. That's just one example. Even though they had a name with ECW, they were kind of brought in, and Simon Diamond and I have talked about this many times, but they were brought in just as another notch for us. They were a known team, so they were going to be brought in as a one-off, put America's Most Wanted over, and let's see where we can go. And we wound up having such a exciting match that they wound up getting jobs out of it, and they even wound up beating us for the tag team titles. So that just goes to show you, man, you know, you can go out there and a one-off performance, and you know, that can change everything for you. But I think the first thing that comes to mind with those kind of matches, the Naturals definitely come to mind, because we worked a lot of indie dates with those guys. You know, it wasn't just the TNA pay-per-views we were doing, but we were all still doing our indie shots. That was a Wednesday pay-per-view, but a lot of us were still working the rest of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we were doing a lot of events with the Naturals. So we had history with those guys. I'm glad we wound up getting some TV exposure with it, because we loved working with. We had great chemistry, and we got to work with those guys a lot. I think we actually had the first cage match with. I think that's right. The first cage match with the Naturals. But that leads me right into Triple X. And maybe that stands out more just because I think that feud stands out in a lot of people's minds. So I get asked a lot about that. But we had some incredible matches with Triple X. And the bonus with those guys is, you know, you get to pick 2 out of 3 guys, you know, so you can have a different combination every time we got in the ring. But I think our most famous matches came with Elix and Christopher Daniels. Our first cage match with them, a lot of people kind of forget about it because the 6 Sides of Steel is still on people's minds. But we actually had that first match back in Nashville with them, where I wound up doing the death sentence off the top of the cage, which was kind of dumb idea, but that was a one and done thing. You know, I've been asked to do it again, and I said that's a once in a career move. That's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, some great memories with those guys. Diamond and Swinger, the Naturals, the New Church. I think that's really what got a lot of people's attention. Our first feud was with the New Church. And even though we were having some great wrestling matches with a lot of different teams, when we got put in a program with those guys, because that was Slash and Brian Lee, those guys like to fight. And so when we go out there, you know, it's not just going to be a regular wrestling match. And the fact that we could stand up to those guys in a fight and give them a piece of what they were giving out, I think that got a lot of people's attention to where they looked at America's Most Wanted, like, you know, hey, these guys, no matter what style they're put in there with, they can hang with these guys. So great memories from those early days, man, and a lot of great teams that you brought up.
Yeah, man, I thought it was important to bring up all those teams because, you know, this really was a golden age in TNA's tag team history, that's for sure. And I did want to bring up, I don't think I wrote it down in my notes for some reason, I forgot to, but I did see that you actually got to wrestle the Rock and Roll Express. That must have just tickled you pink. Tell me about working with Ricky and Robert.
Yeah, well, I had I can't remember what years it was, but I had been on a couple shows with him, so I had met him. You know, Ricky and Robert. You know, even back in 2002, we're thinking, you know, guys, these guys are still around. Hell, 20 years later, they're still around. So yeah, it was cool, man, to see them guys still working. And I'd met them on a few shows. Really cool guys, and yeah, man, those were some of the guys that Storm and I watched growing up. And so for them to be brought in, and we got to work a couple matches with those guys, and it was incredible, man. To be able to, you know, work some old school guys like that, and fun, man. It was fun, and I think we traded off some wins. But yeah, they were brought in for a little bit, and we had some real good fun with them. And I have to give it to Ricky Morton too, because I think our I don't know if it was our second match or what with them, but it was right after Curt Hennig's passing. We had our match with them probably a day or two. I can't remember exactly, but just a day or two after. So everybody was kind of mourning Curt's passing. Well, that was our match with the Rock and Roll Express that night. And I brought it up to Ricky. Like I said, you know, I knew he was a cool guy, but I brought up using the Perfect Plex as a finish. And Ricky was such a pro about it, man, such a trooper. You know, he was down for it. And so the finish of that match was the Perfect Plex on Ricky Morton. So that was one of my fondest memories, man, you know. So I really appreciate Ricky and the Rock and Roll Express doing that. And but you know, complete pleasure to get to work with them. I'm happy to be able to say, and I'll have to throw this other in there. Anytime I talk about getting to work with the old school guys, it's not just the Rock and Roll Express, but Storm and I actually had a match with Terry and Dory Funk.
Really?
Talk about old school, man. You know, but yeah, we got to step in there with a lot of different teams, very experienced, and always a pleasure.
Awesome, bro. I'm glad that I brought that up now because I found out about that. That's really it's a good thing that you guys did there for Curt. So they do tease a split with you and James at one point where it looks like you might join Sports Entertainment Extreme. And obviously that doesn't take place. I might be wrong, but I believe James deals with an injury and there's a chance during this injury where you have a little bit of a singles run. And this is my recollection. And please tell me if I'm right, or wrong, but it feels like you really caught fire for a few months there, working with Jarrett on the 17th of March, 2004 for the World Championship, only to suffer a defeat. You beat Raven for the #1 contendership on the 14th of April, and then on the 12th of May, you unsuccessfully challenged AJ for the belt. And on the 100th NWA TNA pay-per-view, you were in a King of the Mountain match for the title as well. I want to know how you felt about that time period looking back. Did you feel like you had lightning in a bottle and like the people were behind Chris Harris and that maybe it was potentially a good idea for you to win the championship during that time period? Because from my memory, I felt like, man, I think Chris Harris is going to win it here tonight. But that's my memory as a fan. Please tell me, is my recollection kind of the same from your point of view?
The short answer would be yes. I definitely felt like that, and I that makes me feel good that somebody like yourself would feel like that. I'm going to go back to the little tease that we did because I think a lot of people might find this interesting. But first, I'm going to say that because a lot of people know Russo was doing a lot of the Vince Russo was doing a lot of the booking back then, a lot of the writing for the TV. I love Vince. I'm a Russo guy. Of course, you're never going to completely agree with everything, but I think Russo gets a bad rap. He had a lot of great ideas, a lot of bad ideas. But one of Russo's big things, man, he likes to shotgun a lot of stuff. And when he sees something working like that, America's Most Wanted, from 02 to 03, we were hot. And so Russo's frame of mind was, this is hot. Let's split them up and have them feud with each other. That's just that's the old school wrestling, I guess. And even though we were still young guys in the company, we felt like we had to at least speak up. We were the guys that we wanted to do what we were told and be team players. But man, we had something so hot. We spoke up and we said, man, we really think that there's life in America's Most Wanted. We got a lot more we can do. So they did tease that split. And, thank God it wound up, it didn't turn out to be anything. They wound up putting us right back together, which storyline a lot of people may have been confused with because they saw what was coming and they completely, did a 180 and came back. But we were very thankful they did and kept us together. But time-wise, yeah, that kind of led into Storm's injury. He was out with a shoulder injury. I think that might have been I think you said March. So was it March of 04 then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the teasing of the split was 03. And then at some point Storm went out with a shoulder injury. And I'm glad they didn't do a split then because, anytime one guy goes to a singles, that you can bring up some jealousy in the team and, it just kind of, it leads to the whole split. And, but with him being out, yeah, it gave me a chance to step in there. And I guess they looked at it as another contender for Jeff. He was wearing the gold at that time and going through a lot of contenders. But yeah, they put me in the mix, man. And I felt like that was my opportunity to, for a lot of the attention that TNA had gotten, a lot of the attention America's Most Wanted had gotten, and people now knew who Chris Harris was, or a lot of people did. That was my opportunity to show them what I could do in singles. And so, the way they were telling the story, man, it was going great. For me, being in the tag team, and they were building me up as a contender. I was in the mix with, I think that King of the Mountain match had Ron Killings, Raven, AJ. Myself and Jeff, I guess. Jeff.
Jeff was in it, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the way the story has been told, and I've had Vince tell me this himself, the way the story was being told to me, working my way up, and Jeff was doing promos saying I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be the top guy, and I'm saying, yeah, it's my time, and I'm ready, and the people were really getting behind it, man. And Vince has told me that the way the story was going, he said, this has to end with, putting the belt on you. He said, that's just the way the story makes sense. And I've heard this in years later, Vince has said that himself, but I've heard this in years later, I think maybe on his podcast or something like that. But I guess at some point when they left the building the week prior to March 17th with Jeff, the week prior when they left the building, the plan was to, do the big title switch.
Wow.
And see where that went. And you mentioned lightning in a bottle, man. I was so excited. And somewhere in that week, whether it was conversations over the phone or maybe when they came back to the building the next week, plans changed. And, that's just the wrestling business, man. I can be, I can get down and get frustrated, but, hey, that's the wrestling business. I went out there and I still wanted to put on the best match I could with Jeff. Jeff's a pro, man. He had so much going on. So he trusted me to put a lot of that together. And, of course, I got his input, and I think we had a great match. That just kind of led the story even further, where, Raven was getting involved and AJ was getting involved. And I had a great match with AJ. And I think they were leading to a cage match with Jeff and myself. And the way the story went, I'm not sure if this is in your research or not, but they decided they wanted to pull me out and put AJ in, and they wanted to put the strap on AJ. So, where that all, got confusing, I'm not sure. I wasn't really privy to that information. I was just kind of doing, what they wanted. But yeah, I was just happy to be in a mix, man. Yeah. I think people were seeing that, that I could hang with those guys. Those were top stars. Raven, Ron Killings had made a name for himself. Jeff, of course. And then, they were making a star out of AJ. They obviously saw, some really great things for him. So for me to be put in that mix, yeah, man, I felt like I fit. I felt like I hung with those guys. And, I think it was a really exciting time, man, for the promotion at that time.
Absolutely, bro. I really felt like this was such a peak at the time for NWA TNA. I'm sure at this point maybe it's starting to just become TNA, but I wanted to ask you from your perspective, during the period of time, I guess they start to go to Universal Studios and they're maybe working away from doing the weekly pay-per-views. From your perspective, do you feel TNA had made any mistakes business-wise at this point in time? Was there something, anything at all that you felt like could have been improved on within the company at the time?
Oh man, that's hard to say just because I wasn't on the business side of it. I was just a talent doing what I could to, as talent, you're put on camera and you got to, I mean, it's all about, I don't know those ratings at the time, but it's all about ratings, all about eyes getting put on you. So we got to do something that makes people want to tune in week to week. So that was how I looked at it. I wanted to go out there and put on the best performance, whether it was Storm and I being the best tag team or in this little singles run. I know there was a lot of financial issues towards the beginning. I don't know all of the details with things like that, but I know that's when Panda Energy came in and Dixie Carter. And, that was a big deal for the company. I think that kind of saved us at the time. But, yeah, they struck that deal with at first we went to Fox Sports.
I remember that, yeah.
And, yeah, and it was, that was a big deal to us, man. I mean, I remember they having the company meeting, and they were talking how we were going to start filming down in Universal Studios in Orlando. So, I mean, that was a big step for the company. And that's one of the things that was so exciting about being part of the company, being such a big part of the company, was the steps that we were taking. We saw, things were really growing with it. And, it wasn't just like we talked about some of the other promotions that were starting up and failing. TNA was on its way, man. We were doing some great things, and it struggled in the beginning. I can't tell you how many people were telling us that, this company be closed by next week, it'll be closed next month. I mean, we heard it all the time. And, in some sense, you start to believe it, it kind of gets in your head. But since we were the core of the company, all this young, hungry talent, man, we were still going to go out there and do what we had to do and, at least put on the best product that we could. So this whole Fox Sports thing was great. Storyline wise, kind of going back to what you were saying, yeah, they had put the belt on AJ. Storm and I weren't together because of his injury.
Yeah.
Being put on Fox Sports, the company, and I guess, Jeff, Vince, whoever, they wanted all their key players to be in the best position they could be in. So I think within days or weeks, They wound up putting the title back on Jeff to have a big
course.
name with the world title. They put AJ back in the X division, and put the X division title on him. And Storm and I were back together. And the very first taping we did in Orlando for Fox Sports, they put the tag titles back on us. So again, they wanted all their key players back in the best positions they could be. You know, AJ in the X division, Jeff with the the world title, us America's Most Wanted with the tag team titles. So I mean, in a sense, that kind of makes that makes sense. You know, if you're going out to a whole new wider audience, you want them to get the attention. Everybody to be in their best position. So. But it was a very, very big deal for the company. And, we were just so excited to be a part of it. And that was we were going to Orlando every week, man. So we were into the traveling. And I think at first we were still doing the pay-per-view and the TV, if I'm not mistaken. So we were still doing both at the time. And it was a big time. It was a great time in the company.
Yeah, no, I do remember that overlapping just for a little bit before it went to just being on Fox. And then obviously it started to lead to doing the actual pay-per-views once a month or so. But yeah, no, that was a really interesting insight. And I had no idea until you mentioned it about how they put their key players back in the spots that they wanted when they finally got that Fox deal. So it makes so much sense. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, it's surprising AJ's back in the X division.
That's why.
So I wanted to fast forward to the 19th of June, 2006. I believe this is the first meeting, but this was something as a fan that I'd always wanted to see, and I finally got to see it. Never thought it would happen, but Team 3D have come into the company, and Team 3D are going to be working with America's Most Wanted. This is one of those dream matches, because at the time, the Dudleys had still been together in WWE, despite the fact that most of the teams that they were feuding with were either just there for a few months and then gone again, or they were thrown together tag team. But now we get to see a legitimate team that's been together since day dot against another team that's been together now for, at this point, nearly 4 years. What's it like working with Team 3D? Because I feel like for the 2000s tag team wrestling, this is the dream match between a TNA team and a former WWE ECW team.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were looking at it like that, man. I mean, we had been the homegrown stars. Like you said, we had about 4 years under our belt, and I'm not sure how many tag title runs we had at that time, but yeah, we were very well established. Big babyface team. We had a good following everywhere we went. But they always say timing's everything in wrestling. But that was when there may have been talk about. I don't want to just throw this out there. I don't know if there was talk of a split, but there was one of the ideas was to switch us, turn us heel, and let's see what kind of run we can get out of that. So we went in that direction, and they turned us heel. It turned out to be awesome. I think it kind of gave new life into America's Most Wanted. And even though with the history with Jeff, it just made sense. They put us with Jeff, who was the top heel. So, we could kind of share some heat from all the heat he had gotten for us to be aligned with him. I mean, people really, they hated it. And then you add a great addition, the cherry on top was Gail Kim, putting Gail Kim with us. I mean, this foursome was it was awesome. So timing was great, man. 3D was coming in, and they immediately wanted to put him with us. They didn't need any build up. It was the Dudleys. So for them to come in, man, I mean, we were really looking forward to it. And, we carried a little bit of pride with ourselves. I mean, we may not have been on their level at the time, but hey, man, we had, been the top tag team in TNA for 4 years. So in a sense, both storyline and maybe a little realism in there, but we're protecting our spot. So these guys coming in.
I've lost him there. Don't know if you're there, Chris. Everything's frozen.
Our team exposure, but hey, man, are we still there?
Yeah, sorry for whatever reason. For about 10 seconds there, I couldn't hear anything, and everything was frozen. But so you were just saying you were kind of protecting your spot.
Yeah, I mean, but both storyline and realism. You know, we were protecting our spot. You know, we had established ourselves for the past 4 years, and getting exposure on TV. You know, these guys coming in, and it was just like you said, it was kind of a match that people were waiting to see, man. We had some great matches with these guys, not just on TV, but we took it on the road. You know, hey, these guys were the tables guys. We had tables matches with them. It was a lot of fun, and they really, I have to give them credit, man. From the first day they came in, you know, of course we were the heels, so we were getting the heat on them. You know, we would leave them laying, and I mean, we left them in pools of blood. You know, they were doing everything they could to really, you know, take America's Most Wanted a little bit, you know, the next step. I can remember getting heat on them, and you know, of course you tread lightly, you know, when it's guys like these. But I remember there was one time, I think we were just about good on time. So Storm and I were leaving the ring, you know, leaving them in a pool of blood, and I heard Bubba shout at me. He's like, "Get back in here, you know, stay on us." And I'm thinking, you know, we're going over time here. You know, I'm trying to follow the rules here, but you know, Bubba's telling me to stay on. So we got back in, and we got some more heat for another couple minutes. And it was brought to our attention when we got back. Of course, you know, I mean, you know, that's their job. They got on us for going over, but Bubba took the heat, man. He said he was just feeling it out there, and he felt like that's what, you know, he made a call in the middle of the ring, and you know, and of course, you know, everything was okay, but that just goes to show you, man. I mean, they were there. They were willing to, you know, take a beating, you know, just to take us up a notch. So I appreciate that, and we had some great matches with them. And like I said, I really learned a lot from working with those guys. Even though I felt like we were a successful tag team, hey, man, I'm still learning to this day. I've been in the business for years, and you know, you can always learn, and just feeding off those guys, man. It was like, you know, just taking a whole nother lesson. So it was great, man. Pleasure.
Awesome, bro. And really cool of them to come in and not act like they're these big stars, but come in and actually make you guys look on the same level as them, so that the feud's going to actually work and draw some money. Consummate professionals right there. I wanted to bring this to a feud that you have with the LAX Latin American Exchange. And this leads to the 11th of December 2006, where AMW have to split up if they lose the match. What did you think about the idea of splitting up at this point in time in late 2006, and now having a singles run?
I think we were more open to it then. I feel like if we had gone on longer, I think we would have still been successful. I think we had some, I mean, we were, I don't know, we were really strong, man. And, you know, we had something going. And the thing is, we talked about the heel run. When we started in with LAX, that was a brief turn back to babyface. So we could have had another babyface run, and I think it would have been great. I think the crowd would have just, you know, fed right into it. But yeah, that kind of led into I think it started with an 8-man tag where we were teaming up with LAX, and there was just some beef there. And then Conan started talking about burning the American flag, and that's kind of when America's Most Wanted stepped up. And you know, I think I even did a promo saying, you know, we're not America's favorite, but, you know, we're not going to turn our back on America. And so that was an easy transition right there into the feud with LAX. So for a brief moment, you know, people really got behind us in that feud. And but yeah, it didn't last long because it led into that match where the loser, I can't remember if that was the flag match or not, but the losing team had to split up. And you know, that was an idea they brought up to us, and like I said, we were definitely more open to it then. And I think, we had established ourselves very well as a tag team, and in the company we had a great run. But maybe it was time to let's see what we can do as singles. And of course, splitting us up, we're going to feud with each other, and we already knew we had great chemistry. So yeah, we were looking forward to it. We were looking forward to showing, like we talked about before, I had a little brief stint with the singles run, so I had the confidence in myself. But I think Storm is ready to get his feet wet out there too. He was ready to jump right in and show him what he could do. So yeah, we were looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And as a tag team, all these years at this point, you've drawn money as the team. You guys have learned so much at this point. Imagine those two revenue streams in different directions. That it makes sense, right? So you do feud with James after he turns on you after the split. There's this business with you having the beer bottle smashed over your face, which leads to a blindfold match, which I feel like it. I remember watching it thinking this wasn't the match that I wanted to see these two first have. But it also led to an incredible Texas death match a little while down the line. What did you think of the feud with James and how that all went?
Much like you did, and I think that's kind of how everybody looked at it. They were ready for the feud, but yeah, with a beer bottle being smashed over, your face. I was in an eye patch for months. I was out of action for months. I mean, the story was well told. Now, any old school wrestling fan, if you're trying to follow the story, and again, this was, Vince was involved, of course. But if you're following the story, it kind of makes sense for a blindfold. So I get that part. I get that, that was kind of the direction we were headed. We'll see what happens with that. But the truth is, and you brought it up, that's just not what people wanted to see. With the way that story was being told, they wanted to see Harris and Storm beat the shit out of each other. They wanted to see us go at it. And a blindfold match isn't going to give you that. So, yeah, I think we were in St. Louis for that pay-per-view, and that's just not what the people wanted to see. And they shit all over it. I tried not to take it personal, because I get it. I mean, that's just not what people want to see. You put us, I'm pointing through the ring, trying to get the people behind me. Few of them helped. But plus the blindfolds themselves weren't properly done. I think Storms fell off a couple times. It was just an all-around bad match. So, yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I wish we'd have gone a different direction. But I think we made up for it because, once that was over and we got the stink of that match out of us, like I said, people wanted to see us kill each other. And so what better way than to put us in a Texas death match? And I love that people still talk about that to this day. There's not a whole lot of famous Texas death matches out there. But
That's
we
true.
went out there and, neither one of us are, I guess if you want to call it hardcore, neither one of us are hardcore wrestlers, but I feel like when you go out there, if you can make sense out of that stuff and you can do great psychology with weapons and things like that, it's going to really, the fans are going to follow it all the way through. I think they did. It was a great finish to the story with the beer bottle, but I think with that match, I think we made up for it. I think a lot of people, they were willing to forgive the blindfold match and like I said, Storm and I always had great chemistry together, whether it was a straight wrestling match or going out there and knocking the shit out of each other with these weapons. So, but yeah, that was, it's crazy to say that was a lot of fun, but when you feel it and you feel like, you're going in the right direction and the people are with you the entire time, man, I mean, it gives you such a the gratifying feeling that, once it's over and, yeah, man, that's one of my fondest memories, and I was happy to share that with Storm, and just happy to see what direction that took us from there, because we definitely got some attention with being singles wrestlers then. So I think the promotion felt confident in, okay, we got something good with these guys.
Excellent, bro. And I remember watching the Texas Death Match being like, this is what we wanted the first time around. This is what we were looking for. We got it. This is what the guys wanted to show us as well. And I didn't blame either of you for the blindfold match. That's a difficult match to pull off, especially if the blindfold won't stay on one of the participants' heads.
Right.
But these things happen. And but one thing I wanted to say was that after like this had ended, this great feud with you two, aside from the blindfold match, your singles run, I expected to go one way, kind of like it did the first time around. I know you had a feud with Dustin Rhodes, who was at the time under a character called Black Rain, and I know he was going through a lot of problems at the time. And apparently things didn't go well. That's just from my research. I don't really remember any of the matches. But what's your thoughts on this time period after the Storm feud's over and working with Dustin? And did you kind of feel like things weren't going the way that you expected them to?
Well, the immediate future after that was very well, because right after Storm and I went into another King of the Mountain match.
Right.
So I was put right up with the top contenders. I think that was right when Jeff Jarrett's his wife had just passed. So he kind of pulled out, kind of took some time away from the ring. They felt like that was a good spot to slide me right in. So I was in the mix. I was in there with AJ, Christian, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle. I mean, he couldn't ask to be in with better company.
Absolutely.
So to put me in there, and I wasn't just a forgotten guy. I mean, I think I got some attention in that King of the Mountain match, and that kind of snowballed me with Christian. We set the stage for a little program with Christian in that match. I stopped him at the end of it. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but that kind of led me into with Christian, and what a pleasure it would be to work with him. And I think Christian, we actually became really good friends during all this, but I think he knew his part. He was there to create a new star, and he's got a history with that. I mean, he's that's one of the things he's just best at. And we didn't have a long program because I think that went right into Black Rain. We had a pay-per-view match, and that's when Dustin interfered and cost me in the match. So that was kind of it with Christian, and kind of snowballed into Dustin. Now, I do have to say, and I'm glad you brought it up, working with Dustin, it was a pleasure. I mean, the guy's been around. He knows his stuff. I mean, hell, he's probably doing some of his best work now. But yeah, it was great to be in the ring with him, and we had a history with Dustin. There was a lot of even going back to the Nashville days, Dusty and Dustin. We had a lot of 6-man tags with those guys, so those guys were like an addition to America's Most Wanted, like a third and fourth member of America's Most Wanted. So we had a great history with both of them, which kind of told the story, because I think Tenay and Don West, they both told the story where Dustin had a history with us, so him turning on me kind of made sense. And then he brings out he debuts this Black Rain character, which I think was an experiment. I guess they just wanted to see where it was going to go. I was kind of the guinea pig in that, which again I didn't mind. Let's see what we can do with this. But as you brought up earlier, that just wasn't the best time in Dustin's life. So I did become a little frustrated because in the matches we had, they were a lot more difficult to put together than they should have been. And I kind of feel like Dustin would probably tell you that as well. So I don't think I'm, saying anything that would surprise a lot of people. But the matches, I think we pulled them off. The short time we were together, we pulled off the matches, but they were a little difficult getting together. And the feud was just kind of blown off. What a lot of people don't know, this is a little insight. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but they had this idea where Black Rain, as sick as he was, and I don't know if people remember a lot of the TV skits, he had a rat running around.
Yeah.
Well, they had this idea where they wanted to put a bag over my head with the rat inside. And this is a real rat, man. And I don't know, at some point in the wrestling business, when you talk about putting a rodent in a bag on your head, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I kind of drew the line there. And, I hate to say that, I've never been a guy that refused something in the wrestling business, but I remember having a talk with Vince, like, man, I'm just not comfortable with this. And I think we wound up doing something on a pay-per-view where they put the rat on my chest. Like, I was down and they had the rat on my chest. So that was kind of a compromise. But as a lot of us know in the wrestling business, if you say you're not comfortable with something, or especially if you refuse to do something, you never know what your direction is going to be then, man. And so I don't know if they just kind of looked at it like, I don't want to say they were done with me, but they weren't, I didn't feel like they were putting a whole lot of effort after that. So after my program with Dustin was over, I just kind of felt lost there for a little bit, man. There wasn't a whole lot going on. I was just being thrown in a match here and there with no real story. And I felt like, I kind of felt like with what I had done, King of the Mountain with Christian, then with Dustin, I just felt like, hey, this is, let's see where we can go with this. I was ready to give everything I had into this. And, there just wasn't a whole lot of direction. And then this was around the time where a lot of, well, not a lot, but a handful of guys from WWE had been brought in. And it kind of seemed from a talent's perspective that if you had a WWE name with you, you're automatically going to be pushed. And there was a handful of guys, and I do not put Curt Angle in that category, because Curt came in and he was gung ho for TNA. He wanted to do everything he could to help make TNA stronger and put us on the map. So I appreciate Curt. He was willing to work with all the young talent and just take them to a whole different level. But there was other guys that were coming in, and they were just kind of being pushed to the top, where a lot of the young guys, young hungry guys, I consider Bobby Roode, Eric Young, Storm, a lot of guys in that category, where a lot of guys were just kind of being pushed to the side, and that was all a timing thing. And it was a frustrating time. And it just so happened that, and I'm sure you're going to get into it, but it just so happened that was around when my contract was coming to an end.
Oh, okay. So your contract was coming up. Okay. But yeah, that would be frustrating, because TNA had been known for a while there to be making their own stars through the company. Your America's Most Wanted, your AJ Styles, a whole bunch of those guys, had been a part of it since day dot, or at least a little while into NWA TNA's run, still there. But then all of a sudden you get an influx of 4 or 5 former WWE champions, or even just intercontinental champions being brought in. That might bump you back down the pecking order. So I can see how that can be a frustrating thing. January 7th, 2008, Joose Karlifornia, I think is how you pronounce it. That's the final match you have. Your contract runs out. So did you, at that point, was there an interest from WWE, or, what was the scenario there?
Everybody has different scenarios, I guess, as far as, reaching out, and I guess we call it sending feelers out. And I guess I just wanted to explore my options with everything that was going on that we were talking about. There wasn't a whole lot of thought being put into my character, not a whole lot of direction. They were bringing in other guys from, whether it's WWE, you brought up Joose Karlifornia. He was a guy from Puerto Rico they were being brought in. And again, he ran over me to go on. I think he went with Abyss. I can't remember, but it was just one of those. It was just one of those times where I just wanted to explore my options, man, because I didn't know what was going on there. And in fact, they Curt was being focused a lot then. He was in a lot of TV segments, which, again, like I said, Curt was a team player. He was there to do whatever he could for TNA, but they were using him in a lot of TV time that they could have used for a lot of younger upcoming guys. And I used to make comments I think I would be putting segments with Curt, and I would make comments where they would actually put it on TV, where it's like, hey, if I'm going to get TV time, I better be in a Curt Angle segment. So it looked like they were kind of going into a direction where I was being frustrated, almost like kind of had a little attitude, and kind of being a little whiny, things like that, and I could see it, where it was going to go in a direction where I could actually be aligned with Curt. So something like that would have been pretty exciting, but I just didn't see a whole lot of direction with that. And from the other side, what I was hearing is there was a lot of interest, and a guy in my position, I'm thinking, well, hey, there's interest there, and I fed right into it. I mean, I was like, hey, these guys are interested, they can do something. So maybe that's something I should look into. And the contract was coming toward the end, and then I guess just an added bonus to it, they were going to give me a cut and pay, and and this kind of goes along with them bringing in all these WWE stars. Well, where's all that money going? What's going to them? And then they're gonna cut some of the guys that have been there since day one. Give me a cut and pay, and I don't know numbers. I can't remember. I don't remember that far back, but it was going to be a significant amount, and I just thought to myself, this is crazy, just everything on this side I was looking at, and then of course, like I said, I was feeding into this side where hey, we're going to do something, and hey, we're definitely interested and excited, and so it was weighing my options. It was a very difficult time. It was stressful. Because I consider myself a TNA guy. I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to be wanted. That's all. I just wanted them to want me, and hey, let's go on to bigger and better things, and keep growing the company. I never wanted to leave. But in the long run, that's the decision I made. Offer was made. I wound up going in that direction, and yeah, that's what I decided to do. And, I left TNA, the contract was up, I think there's reports out there where I got released. That wasn't it. My contract was up. So I just didn't re-sign and went a different direction.
Right. Yeah. No, on your Wikipedia article, it said you were released. I have a Wikipedia editor's account. I'm going to change that after this because the truth has to be out there as much as possible.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
That's cool, man. I didn't feel like you got released, and you confirmed it with me right now, but that was just my feeling. Okay, so feel has been put out. I did see my research at the All-State Arena in Chi-Town. You take on Shelton Benjamin in a dark match on the 11th of March, 2008. But then I don't see that you don't actually debut in the WWE until July 8th. Was this just like a dark match, just to a tryout or something like that? Or when was it that you actually were signed to the company?
I think I signed in January, so it was pretty quick. From when I left TNA and then had my contract with WWE, it all went down in January. I think my last date, I think you even said it with Judas, was in beginning of January, and by the end of January, I was signed. So it happened pretty quick.
Wow. Okay.
It
was January 7th.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, it was January 7th, the match with Judas. So yeah, it's only a few weeks after that.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess. I guess I said home for a month. They brought me in. My first event was. I think you just said Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah, Shelton, which I think that's a normal thing. I wasn't. To put a new talent in a dark match, that was. I think that that's a regular thing they would do just to kind of check you out, feel you out. I don't think it was a great match. Looking back on it, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I kind of feel like Shelton was kind of going through a time right then. He had been with the company for a long time, and they weren't really doing a whole lot with him. So maybe he was going through a frustrating time for himself. And then he gets put in a dark match with new signee. So, he may not have had, been in the best moods. So I don't think it was a great match, but, we got through it. I'm not sure what they saw, if they were happy, and I've said this many a times, I don't know if they even had any direction. I don't know what their thinking was. But I did start making some trips down to Tampa. This is before NXT. It was Florida Championship Wrestling, where that was their developmental territory down there. So I did start making some trips down there, and I started training with those guys every day, taking bumps every day. I mean, I felt like I was back in, my normal, training days. So once in a while I would be brought to TV, but there wasn't a whole lot going on. Yeah, man, I don't really remember the timeline of all this. I just remember when I was there, whether it was down in Florida or being on the road, like Florida, Tom Pritchard was down there, and he, when I was first there, the first days of being there, he made it like it was a big deal, and kind of put me over to the rest of the team there. When I was on the road, John Laurinaitis, was talking big things, to a lot of promises. So I was at first I was excited about being there. I felt like, okay, you got to be patient. You got to be patient in this business. So I'm just kind of waiting around and seeing what happens. And just weeks would go by, and each time it would go by, I kind of got a little bit more frustrated, especially after TV when they would send me back down to Tampa and going through the training all the time. I'm just not sure what direction we were taking. So, it started to get a little frustrating, and, I was, I was training, I was doing some of my best training, of my life. Then I was doing, in the gym twice a day, just trying to be ready for anything that they would want me to prepare for. So, but it was getting to be very frustrating. I was kind of wondering, what's going on? What are we doing? I'm just kind of lost in the shuffle here. And I think it was months. It wasn't until months later that they brought me in for a TV match. And then I think I did a skit in the back or something like that people still talk about today for not good reason.
Well,
but yeah, man, trying to shorten it down there. They had no idea what was going on. This is a $1 billion company. They had no idea. Just to add to that, I was brought into up to Connecticut. They gave. I actually went up with Ron Killings because him and I signed at the exact same time, and we went up there and had a tour of Titan Towers, and both of us separately had long meetings with the writing team. So for hours, I was sitting there, communicating back and forth with them, and I felt like we were bouncing some ideas off each other, and I felt like, okay, yeah, I remember walking out of that meeting feeling good, like, okay, this was a good step, positive step. Let these guys do what they do best and get creative, and let's put something together. And absolutely nothing came of that. And and then I'm sure we'll get to it, but getting to my debut on TV, it was just so blah. I mean, there was just nothing to it, and nobody cared. Just to give you an idea, Ron Killings and I signed at the exact same time, and if you remember, Ron had a brief run with WWE, so they were familiar with him. So I don't know if they necessarily looked at him as a TNA guy. Because there's been talk. I mean, it's been talk for years that if you're not a WWE guy, if you're not a produced WWE guy, you're in trouble. I was obviously looked at it as a TNA guy. Well, Ron, they were kind of open arms to him, and just to give you some kind of contrast here, they sent a TV crew to his home, and I think he's in North Carolina. They sent a TV crew to his home and started filming some vignettes to show on TV to build up to Ron Kill or R-Truth to his debut. And any of us old school wrestlers, we can look back. Vignettes are magic. I mean, they can really bring up a character when they start debuting clips and vignettes week to week to week, build up to a debut of a character. I mean, it can really make everything. And so they did that with Ron. And so by the time Ron came out, and his music was his own, they let him use his own music. I think it was exciting. I mean, I loved when Ron debuted, and people really cared about it. And they were like, great, great new star here, and hell, he's still there today. But with me, there was nothing. There was nothing behind it, and the music was awful. But yeah, there was just nothing in the debut. I mean, there was no reason for people to care.
Yeah, and it's not off. It is often actually that I go on a little bit of a rant sometimes on the show.
I'm interested
because when I have my guests on my show, I like to put them up on a pedestal, and I know that there are times in a lot of professional wrestlers' careers where there's a lot of shit that's out of their control, yet down the line, especially with those toxic kind of, not just marks, but I like to call them skid marks, they will actually blame the talent and pick on them on the internet with a Twitter account that doesn't have their actual name or their actual picture in the profile picture, and then they will talk shit about people. But so this is why I like to go on these rants, because it's important for me to get this out there, because these interviews that I do, I feel I do the ultimate interview with anyone and everyone that I have on the show. And maybe I sound cocky, but I can back it up. So this is what I want to say. Okay, you're talking about the contrast between your debut and Ron Killings. He gets vignettes. He gets his own music that he gets to rap to on the way to the ring. The art of debuting a wrestler on television is letting the people at home know that might not have been watching TNA for years, know who this guy is, figure out a character, spend a couple of hours to think of a direction and where you want that character or talent to be within 6 months to a year to 2 years. You should have a game plan for everybody that you're investing money in to draw money for your company. That's one thing that I wanted to bring up. It blows my mind that you can sign somebody to a contract that has so much promise and so much talent and not have a fucking game plan from day dot. And for you to sit at home from March of 2008 and not be brought to TV until July, and you're doing stuff in Florida Championship Wrestling, you're working your ass off. And for them to have that amount of time and not sit there and think of something to do with you other than fucking Braden Walker, who it's just a name. It's just two names put together. It's not a character. It's just a name. They didn't even get you to be Wildcat Chris Harris, which is what you were known as, because, we need to come up with our own thing and so we can trademark it. Yet they bring guys in like CM Punk and he could be CM Punk, but then they bring in Colt Cabana and he has to be Scotty Goldman. These things happen all the time. Some people get favored and get given these opportunities, but other people, when they're brought in, they're not brought in with a game plan, and this is what they're given. And how are you supposed to make chicken salad out of chicken shit when you aren't doing any of the writing? You're just being told what to say in these segments backstage. This is what you're being given. You're doing it to the best of your ability, but you're only as good as the creative written for you. You're only as good as the content you were given. So for anyone out there that wants to disparage the name of Chris Harris for the run that he had as Braden Walker in the company, don't blame Chris Harris. You blame the company for not fucking knowing what they were doing and for doing wrong by somebody who had all the talent in the world to go as far as he could. That's my rant. Sorry, Chris, I had to say it.
Well, Carl, thank you. I appreciate all of that, and that felt good coming from another voice. The first thing I'll say, I'll bring up the name. I kind of went into the whole thing knowing just from WWE's history that Chris Harris was not going to make the company. So switching it to Braden Walker, I was actually like, okay, give me whatever you want. I'll make it work. That was just the confidence that I had. So even though we've heard funny stories in the past of where some of the talent had been given a list of names, and some of those names are crazy. I kind of went through the exact same thing. There was some crazy names that were there, and I tried to throw in my input. But long story short, we came up with Braden Walker. I felt confident enough in my ability. I'll make it work. Let's just go with it and see where we go from here. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you with the thought process here. This big company, and they have a team of writers. Like, I remember days when it was just 2, 3, 4 people. They had a whole time. I mean, when I had that meeting, I lost count of how many people were in that meeting at this table. They have a team of writers, and that is their job, to come up with something creative. If they had no idea who I was, which I realized I'm in a whole new audience, there's people that never watched TNA, have no idea who I am. I'm cool with that, but give them a reason to care about somebody new, whether it is vignettes or, if we're going to do these stupid backstage skits, let's at least make them make sense. We did these backstage skits, and they were just throwing lines out as we went. They had nothing. They had nothing. I mean, and this is something that's happened in recent memory. My first TV match was, what was his name?
Armando Estrada.
Yeah, Armando. He's actually come out on a interview or podcast or something, and I felt like, like you brought up, a lot of people have, trashed me for the failure, and I'll take some responsibility for it, but people don't realize what went on behind the scenes. Well, Armando's been out there, and he was in that room, and he has backed me up without even knowing it, saying that, he felt bad for this new guy coming in, and they were just feeding me lines, and this whole, might as well bring it up, but, Braden Walker, I'm going to knock your brains out. I mean, give me a break, man. That's awful. Yeah. But I was the new guy, man. I was going to do what I was told. And, so they say this, and I'm like, of course, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, that's awful. That's embarrassing. But, they wanted me to say that. So yeah, I said that. And people still, all this time later, it's just amazing that, people still remember that part. But no thought put into it whatsoever. And not to throw somebody under the bus, but Bruce Pritchard was the producer of that skit. And in his defense, I know he was gone from the company not long after that. I know it was in 2008. So I don't know if he just wasn't feeling it, but he just seemed so disinterested in this whole skit. So he was no help. And the whoever else was in there feeding the lines, they were just giving the lines. But yeah, man, just no thought put into this whatsoever. And just to add to this, I felt like, okay, name, music, the look, the horrible backstage skits, whatever, put me in the ring and I'll make up for it, because I felt strong enough that just get me in the ring and I'll make up for it with my talent. Because I felt like I could have a good match with anybody, and if they could at least see that, add some character to it, and we got something. Just to add to that, when I had to go out for a match, they were telling me what to do and what not to do. I could not even be myself in the ring. They pretty much shut down every signature move I had, which, I'm willing. I mean, I've always heard this about, you got to adapt to the WWE style, and it's a whole new world. And hey, I get that, man. I was willing to adapt to whatever I had to, just let me plug in and listen and keep my eyes open, and you tell me, how I can program myself into this style of wrestling or TV or whatever the case is. But man, I would go out there for my matches, and I'd kind of have stuff in my head of what I was going to do. And sometimes a lot of the guys will go out during the day at the ring and kind of walk through a few things. I can't tell you how many times I would walk through a move and I'd have somebody stop me and say, "What are you doing? You can't do that." I mean, there were so many of my moves that were cut out So I mean, I think the last match I had, I must have thrown 15 clotheslines because they wouldn't let me do anything else. It was unbelievable. And I mean, there was, a lot of guys had come up and said something like that. But for example, I'll just bring up this one move, but the catatonic, which is what I had done for years. Umaga had done a similar move to that. So I felt like, okay, out of respect, it's, I mean, that's what you do in the business. I went and talked to him, and he had been in TNA for a brief run. So, and I'd had some match with him. So I hung out with him, a cool guy. We got along great. I do have to say, he was a different person in WWE. So when I went to talk to him about it, and I explained to him, this is what I do. This is what I'd like to do they were going to put me over. So I had to come up with a good finish. So I said, this is what I do, and I've been doing it. I just want to talk to you about it. I don't remember the words I used, but pretty much asking, for his approval or permission, however you want to look at it, to do this move. And he just kind of looked at it like, I just felt like he was blowing me off with a roundabout no. I mean, he was saying, if you think you can get that over as a finish, it's a setup move for me, so it's not going to mean anything. And kind of dancing around the whole thing, but I took it as meaning, okay, this guy doesn't want me to do it, or he's setting me up to fail. I mean, I almost feel like if I'd have done it anyway, people would have come to me and said, what are you doing? I'd have got a heat for that. So, but yeah, man, I'm just, I couldn't even be myself in the ring. There were so many of my moves that were too similar to what other people were doing. So I had to cut that out. So I think my first match, I won with a crossbody off the top, which even that looked like shit. So it was just all around, man. I mean, like I said, I've tried to take enough responsibility myself for it. I was there. They always say, hey, talent will shine through, it'll break through. I felt like I had enough talent that I could have made something, but I just felt like there was so many things working against me. They just had no focus, no direction, no nothing. I mean, I don't, and I don't want to blame this on the whole TNA thing. A lot of people said, do you think you were labeled right when you went in? Yeah, kind of. I do. I think at that time it was a lot different than it was a few years later. When they wanted to, shut TNA down. I'll use Monty Brown as another example. Yeah. Great talent. I think he was huge in TNA. They could have done something with him, and he went through the same kind of thing. Name change, and they just had no direction for him, and he was out of there. Fortunately, years later, I don't know where the wake-up call was, where they finally were okay with acknowledging outside talent. Hey, there's life outside of WWE, because the name that jumps to the top of the list is AJ. AJ broke through the big. But they accepted AJ for what he had done in the past. He was AJ Styles. He got to be himself. Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Eric Young. I mean, these guys all came in as themselves and were able to be themselves. So I wasn't there, so I don't know where that breakthrough was. I'm glad it did, because I love that all these guys went in and, was able to, make some good money for a brief period of time. AJ's at the top of his game. He definitely shone through and showed his talent. But wherever that change happened, I'm glad it did. But unfortunately, I was in the wrong time, and there was no thought put into it whatsoever. So I don't know if the right words are I was set up to fail. I don't know what the right thing is, but a lot of the blame does. I mean, I don't feel bad saying it. A lot of the blame does go on them. But I'll accept it. I'll accept some on my part too, because maybe I could have broke through. Maybe I could have done some things different. I tried to communicate with enough higher ups that I felt like, hey, I'm at least trying to communicate with them and seeing where we can go. But man, just it was a bad time and bad all around.
I'm going to chime in here, Chris, and say 0% of it is your fault. You can be the nice guy at the end of the day and say that it's no. You had everything, all your moves taken away from you. No one, even tried to come up with a decent idea for you. You weren't even able to be yourself whatsoever. You tried as hard as you could to communicate with Umaga, with management. You did everything you possibly could. It was all just totally against you. So 100% blame goes to them. And that's the end of the story. I'm not allowing you to have that as an answer. So,
well, thank you, Carl. I really appreciate that, man.
No worries, bro. And look, we knew we were going to have to talk about that run at some point. And you beat James Curtis nearly a month later after the Armando match in Atlanta. When did the release come? Did they call you and say that this wasn't working out, or did you call them and say that obviously this isn't working out? I want to leave. What was that situation?
Well, it was probably the worst year of my life. I was in a funk. I was going down a dark path. I for being in the biggest wrestling company in the world and somebody that lived wrestling. I mean, that was all I wanted to do. Had such a passion for it. I can't believe these guys had enough control to break that down. I felt like I could break through anything, and this company, I kind of compared it. And in no way am I saying I've never been in the military or anything like that, but it's almost like when you go into the military and they just break you down to where they can build you back up into their soldier. And going in there, I felt like that they just wanted to break everything out of me. And at this point, I mean, I went in there and I'd been in the business 15 years. So, I felt like, I kind of established myself, maybe in my head, but I had established myself so I could, go in there and, put me in the ring with anybody and I'll get in there and do my thing. But, it was just, all around, it was bad. I was going down a dark path, and then I had my match with Curtis. I think that was a match where, again, they were, I felt like a robot, man. They were just trying to program me into, what to do in the ring. And it just didn't feel like me. It wasn't me. I don't blame any of it on Curtis. He was there trying to get a spot as well. The only bonus of that match was, again, they were looking for a finish. And I suggested the perfect plex.
Right.
It was just in the back of my mind. It was something that, kind of shot in there, and I figured they'd turn it down for that reason, because it was Kurt's move. And plus, just a little side note, but Joe, his son, Curtis Axel, was coming up in the Tampa promotion, so I felt like they might have shut that down too. But they were cool with it. So I finished the match with the perfect plex. I remember after the match, it was not good. That was the match. I think I was throwing a bunch of clotheslines. They were adding time, cutting time, adding time, cutting time, which a lot of people will say this, in the wrestling business, you got to be ready for that. I mean, that's part of being a good worker is, you got to be able to adjust to the time. But I almost felt like they were fucking with me. I don't remember how much time we had, but it just kept adding time and then cutting it. And it just, when you're in the ring and I'm already can't do what I normally do, and I'm trying to, be programmed by it was a mess. So I was not happy with the match. I remember coming back. I think Johnny was one of the guys I talked to, but I tried to stay positive. I was telling him, I was like, look, it didn't feel right. But I'm willing to work. I'll keep working harder. I'll make it work. And I just kept trying to be positive, even though it was falling fast. And I think it might have just been a couple days later. I don't know if that was Monday, Tuesday, or what, but a couple days later, I was sitting in my home and I got a call from Johnny, and he said, we're going to exercise our right to release. And the funny thing is, man, a lot of guys, when they get released from their contract, that's the worst thing that could happen to them, to their career. That just, leads to nothing good. I was so relieved, man. I wanted out of there so bad. I've told this story before, but it's worth repeating because it shed some light on it. I remember I was out on my deck talking to Johnny in this conversation. It wasn't a long conversation. But as soon as I was done, the girl I was dating at the time, I came back inside in my living room, and she looked at me, and I told her I got my release. And she said that was the first time I had smiled in months.
Wow.
So I mean, for that to be the first thing she said, I mean, it was like, even from an outsider, she's looking at it like, you could tell the relief off my face. I mean, I just wanted out of there so bad. And which is a shame, man, because, I made it there. That was a goal of mine in my career. And it just didn't go the way I wanted, the way I'd hoped for. And, but yeah, I wanted out of there so bad. And that was the best thing for me, man. It still took me a long time to crawl out of this dark hole that I had been in. I mean, I kind of went through a depression after that, just because I didn't know where I was going with my wrestling career. But the end result is, they gave me my release. Well, I didn't ask for it. They told me they were going to release because for whatever reason on their part, but I certainly didn't fight it. I wasn't trying to argue or anything like that. I was, hey, can I come back sometime? I had nothing like that. I wanted out, and I never wanted to go back.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel bad hearing that it made you feel so down and all that stuff. And I know, this is 2008, and, I will be bringing up Sacrifice 2011 with TNA. But, that's 3 years there. Were you thinking to yourself at this point, like, maybe I need to do something else with my life? What was that time period like for these 3 years before this opportunity to do something with TNA again arose?
The best I can remember, I mean, it was a bad time. I mean, I'll just say that. I mean, I went through a really bad depression. I did kind of feel out TNA a little bit, and I guess, in a perfect world, they'd have accepted me back with open arms. But the truth is they were still pissed off for me leaving. So I don't think they were too into, hey, come on back, which I can't, number one, I can't blame them. And number two, that was probably a good idea because I wasn't ready. I was just in such a state that I didn't have my heart in the wrestling, and that wouldn't have been, they didn't deserve that. If they would have brought me back, my heart wouldn't have been into it. So that, it would have just been bad for me. It would have been bad for the company. So I'm kind of glad they didn't bring me back right away. I just had to kind of, fight my way out of it a little bit. And I don't think I did any wrestling for a long time. I didn't even do indies or anything. So I got out of it, but I started feeling my way back in, still doing some indies. I kind of had to break the stink of Braden Walker because that was fresh in everybody's mind, but I still wanted to get in the ring and try to break through it. I did some local stuff. I did some traveling, not a lot, but a little bit. And but I did keep in ties with TNA. In fact, about a year later, after I got released, I actually moved to Orlando. So it was kind of like once I went through that brief period of trying to find myself again, I wanted a whole new start, just a whole new fresh breath, fresh air. So I moved to Orlando. I loved the place. I spent enough time down there with TNA, so I was familiar with it. So I moved down there. I wound up down there for 5 years, but that also meant I was close to TNA, and they were always, there wasn't much talk of doing something, but they were always open to me if I happened to show up to watch the show or say hi to some friends or anything like that. They were always really cool with it. And I hung out with them afterwards. If we went to grab a bite to eat or grab a beer or something like that. So, I kept in contact with them. So. When that did wind up rolling around, it wasn't like a out of the blue kind of thing. It was a real exciting thing. I was glad to get that call.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I just watched this promo earlier, and I was so frustrated earlier because I was trying to find the match with you and Jeff for the world title. back in the day on YouTube. It's not there. So I'm going to have to like dig deep into my archives because I've got a lot of stuff on my hard drive to watch that again. But I was able to find this, and it was Matt Hardy having a bit of a back and forth with Beer Money, which obviously features your former tag partner James Storm with Bobby Roode. And, you know, they were talking about him having a surprise tag team partner to face them at Sacrifice. And then right near the end of the segment, out comes Wildcat Chris Harris. So this is like, you know, I remember at the time, this was like right near the end where I'd stopped watching TNA pretty soon after this. It wasn't long, but that as a fan, I gave up on TNA around 2011, 2012. I just wasn't happy with what I was getting on television, but I was like, it has to be Chris Harris, and it was. So you end up teaming with Matt Hardy against Beer Money at Sacrifice 2011 for the tag team titles. Beer Money pick up the victory. Okay, so the opportunity to come back takes place. You have the match, but then you don't stay with TNA. What was that situation there?
Again, timing's everything with wrestling. They may have been leading to a Beer Money Hardy Boys match, and I don't want to speak for Jeff's position here, but for whatever reason, it was a time where he was out of the company or a brief hiatus or something. But so Jeff was kind of pulled out of the picture, and it was a perfect fit, man. I think Matt even set it up for, 2-3 weeks where the buildup was going to be Jeff. You know, a lot of people were thinking it was Jeff. And I think Beer Money even did a promo where they said, hey, we know your partner's Jeff. And so me coming out, yeah. And the thing is, if you're following the story was great, you know, with the history. If you're an old TNA fan, you know, this was exciting. To come out and be a surprise for Matt, and hey, the history's there with me and Storm, and so it was great. But this was also in the Hogan Bischoff era, where I don't know, I don't want to speak for them, but I guarantee they weren't watching anything with TNA back in the early days with America's Most Wanted. So to them, this probably was a shit story, shit match. Who's this guy we're bringing in? You know, this was 2011. The last, you know, Storm and I had, you know, been together on TV, feuding even, you know, was 07, 08. Yeah. So it was exciting to a lot of, you know, faithful fans, but maybe to the new audience that, you know, Hogan and Bischoff was bringing into it, you know, that maybe they didn't care. But it was exciting to me, man. I was glad to get that phone call. Getting a team with Matt was awesome. Getting to wrestle Beer Money. I was actually a fan of Beer Money. I think a lot of people at the time, they thought that, you know, oh God, Storm's moved on and I must hate this. And I loved Beer Money. They were entertaining, man. They were great. And I've always been close with Bobby too. So, you know, they were both great talents. I think putting them together, much like Storm and I were put together, I think they loved their work. They just didn't have anything for them. And so they put them together, and those guys, much like Storm and I did, they were like, hey, let's make it work. Yeah. So they put Beer Money together, and they made it, you know, they made it. So I thought it was a great match. I was looking forward to it. The truth is, I dug a little deeper into it, and there was some storylines set up for it. I think they were, from what I understand, they were eventually going to want to break Bobby out into the singles, and they gave me week to week. You know, I don't remember if I was talking to Terry Taylor or Vince. I think it was Vince, but they had kind of laid out a storyline where Bobby was going to get hurt, and they almost needed a last-minute replacement. And I was going to kind of, you know, throw my name in the hat and be like, hey, you know, we got success. And I think it may have been for the tag titles or something like that. But, hey, we got history. You know, we can make this work. And anyway, I'm not sure exactly how it was going to fall down, but Storm and I were going to team, and Bobby was going to be supportive, but then it was going to be some kind of a split there. But anyway, they were going to eventually put America's Most Wanted back together. And however it got there, I mean, that I'm sure it would have changed anyway. But so I was excited, man. I was like, hey, let's second chance for me. Let's make this work. And I was kind of told that the day of the pay-per-view, which we had done some house shows leading up to it, just to get us all some, feeling out process. And so we had done some matches leading up to that, but the big match was on the pay-per-view. And I felt like it was a good match. I don't know how they looked at it, but I thought it was a good match. But all the talk afterwards was, hey, that's just a one and done kind of thing. And, we'll see where we're going from here. And I guess I tried to, keep my spirits up, but I wasn't too sure what was going but that was it. Yeah, it was a one and done, man. And I can't remember what direction they went in, but yeah, that was it. I don't know. I still to this day don't know exactly what was behind it. I think that again, we go back to the packages, man. If you had just shown some highlights of America's Most Wanted, or something just to refresh the newer audience of where we were coming from, we'd have had them. Even the new audience would have cared as to where we were going for this, and we'd have had them interested to where people would have been tuning in to see where this story was going to go. So I think it was something that was exciting that was on the horizon. I think it could have been pretty cool, but didn't work out, and they were done after that night.
Right. Well, now I know the scoop there on that, and you're right. If they showed some old footage, it might have led to some more things. And the Bischoff Hogan era with TNA is quite controversial in the fact that they I think Eric said on day one, everything that ever happened here before I got here doesn't matter. So when I hear stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, fair enough. That's why it went so well for you, bro, after you were there. But anyway, look, I'm not going to tell Eric Bischoff how to do his job. But it appears after this, and this is in my research, if I'm wrong again, please tell me, between 2012 and 2018, you wrestle only 31 matches. Is that true?
Been missing you maybe missed a handful of them, or one or two or something, I don't know, but I know it wasn't a lot, because I was still trying to, I guess, maybe keep my name out there a little bit, and kind of see where it was going. I think for a while I was still hopeful of certain things, but as those years were going on, the injuries started piling up. I went through some health issues. So little by little, without any, I guess I would say, positive direction in the wrestling world, it was kind of going a different direction. So little by little, I was kind of fading out. And towards those later years, I started picking up on, I think that's when, a lot of conventions were getting big. And so I started doing more appearances and less wrestling. So I actually started kind of getting into that, even though, maybe with the right training, I could have got back in there, but that just wasn't, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I've ever been asked that as far as the direction right then, but the matches sound about right. But I was kind of transitioning out of that, and only doing a handful of bookings, maybe if I was willing to, or if I was able to make some decent money. But then I started doing more appearances and signings and things like that, which even has led into, nowadays, even in the past year or so, I mean, they turned it into virtual signings, which was a whole new thing for me. So, but yeah, I was kind of leading into doing more appearances, and I always enjoyed that because I could sign autographs and not take any bumps. So that was a lot better on the body.
Fair enough, bro. I believe this might have been your last match, but tell me if this is right or wrong. February 10th, 2018, at ASWA Saturday Night Slam in Mansfield, Ohio, against a guy by the name of Ethan Wright. Was that your last match that you had in wrestling?
No, I've had some since then, but
Okay.
leading in that whole direct. What was that? 2018.
February 10th, 2018. Yeah.
That was other than local stuff. That was one of the last promotions that I worked with, and the only reason I stuck to that one longer was because that was the original training center that I went to. That was those guys.
Right.
So they were still running shows, and they got in contact with me and talked about me coming in. So I was getting to see some familiar faces, some guys I hadn't seen in 20, 25 years. So it was kind of cool, and I was working for them. But it got to be, and that's only been 2-3 years ago. But it started getting to a point where with the travel and even just the preparation for matches, it just wasn't fun anymore. And, if you're not having fun with this, if you don't have your heart into it, I felt like I was still performing okay, but it was more of a struggle to get through it. So, when you're not having fun anymore, then you're not doing anybody any favors. So, it's time to step back. And so that was one of the last promotions that I worked for. That sounds about right. I think Ethan probably was one of my last matches there, or the last match. Great talent too. He's a good kid. I hope great things for him. But after that, I kind of transitioned, and I had still done some work with the local promotion. It's the Northern Wrestling Federation out of Cincinnati. And I just decided that I think, other than the signings, which I still do, and the appearances and things like that, I still do those dates, with no wrestling. But I still do some local stuff, and I've actually gotten into the training center where I'm actually one of the helping out with a lot of the younger students, the newer students, and that has really ignited me all over again, because I found a whole new level of a passion that I once had. Now I get to see it in all these young, hungry guys, and which I can relate to. And I always felt like that I could give back to the business. I always felt like, now that I have 25, 26 years under my belt, now it can be time where I can help some of these other guys become some stars that, and add some expertise that they may not have. A lot of trainers around anywhere. A lot of the trainers, sometimes they haven't, been to certain places that I have. So I'd like to be able to bring that into it and just share any kind of knowledge that I have. So that's kind of what I've gotten into now, man. I've been really enjoying it. I love seeing these guys get out there, and I do that a couple times a week. And then obviously on the shows, I help them put their matches together. And it's really given me a whole new fire to it, man. I really enjoy that. And so I do local stuff. And people ask me about the wrestling, and the truth is, I don't do much. The only reason I say much is because once in a while, Roger Ruffin will get into my head and he'll talk me into getting in there and doing a tag match or something like that. So I always blame him for that, because I'll do it more as a favor. And plus I'm comfortable with these guys. They can work around my limitations and things like that. So yeah, once in a while I'll do that. But for the most part, man, I do the training, and I'm still doing the appearances and signings, to whatever's out there. And hopefully we can get back to, doing some bigger and better things, once the whole, the COVID's all done and things like that. So yeah, man, that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's brilliant, bro. Love hearing all that, and glad to hear that you're giving back to the business that you gave so much to as well. And I didn't even realize that this had happened until today. And I was so happy to see the footage of it. March 30th of this year, episode of Impact. You show up on Impact, appearing for James Storm's 100,000th match. Jesus, 1,000th match. It's 1:30 in the morning now. It's 1:30 in the morning now, but his 1,000th match in the company, and you aid him in defeating Eric Young. And I got to see one of those southpaw left hands one more time. Loved it. Didn't even know this happened until today. This is how, far removed I am from some of the current product, and that's on me. But how was that? Who contacted you to be a part of this? Did James have a hand in that? And you must have been pretty excited to, after all these years, be back on Impact.
It was extremely exciting, man. And throwing that left hand, man, it couldn't happen to a better guy, Eric Young. So it felt great to pop him one more time. I've kind of stayed in obviously I've been in, Storm and I have kept in touch. So I've kept up with his career and he's doing great. And then I've actually kept in touch with Impact as well. Kind of going back to what I was saying as far as giving back, I always felt like I would be great in some kind of the agent producer kind of position. And the only company I ever really saw myself doing that for would be Impact, just because of the history. I mean, my heart would be into that. So I've kind of felt that out. And as we all know, Scott D'Amore is running that thing. I have a history with Scott. He's always been a great friend to me, so we've kept in touch. And of course, I've thrown it out there. He knows where I stand, and if they're ever looking for something like that, then hopefully he contacts me. But yeah, we've kept in contact. So this came up, and no, Storm and I actually kind of laugh about it because he didn't even know about it. Somebody must have been keeping track and sent him something. I'm assuming social media about it being his 1,000th match in the company, just in TNA Impact. And so the company got wind of it and decided to make something out of it, which I'm so glad they did. I mean, it just kind of added some interest to what was going on. But Scott got in contact with me and told me they were going to do this big thing with Storm's 1,000th match, and how about I come in and be a part of it? And I was like, hey, let's do it, man. I'm in. And so I went in for the taping, and he had his match with Eric. We did a couple of backstage skits too that were fun. In fact, I think our face-to-face when I first came out in that backstage skit, I think that got more attention than the match itself, just because they saw us face-to-face and nobody really knew what was going to happen with the history. And we hesitated for about 4 or 5 seconds and then got a big hug out of it. So I was so happy and excited with the feedback I got. I never imagined it was going to be like that, man. But so many people came out of the woodworks after they saw that and just loved talking about, even though it wasn't a tag match, an AMW reunion. There were so many people that, I just got so much positive feedback from that. And so that was really cool. And hell, I don't mind mentioning that it helped out my bookings too. So, a lot of people were asking about appearances and things like that. Actually, in a couple weeks, Storm and I are doing a little bit of a reunion. We got an event that we're doing. Storm's wrestling. I'll be in his corner. So we got, just a little something there for the people, and that want to reach out. And we're looking to do any kind of events like that. I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of talk like this. They want to see another tag match, and I'd love to be able to give that to them. But if I can't give the Wildcat of old, man, I don't want to let anybody down. So I'd rather them remember the good matches and when I could really go and not show them a shell of my former self. So hopefully people are happy when they if we could just do some appearances where we're together, him and I are together, and Storm can still go. I mean, he's in great shape. He's still out there and doing great. So anything I can do to support him and being a part of that is awesome. So, but yeah, the whole Impact thing, man, that was great. It was great to be there. I saw some familiar faces, got to see some of the new talent. So, it was really great being there. It was very different doing it in front of no fans. And been wrestling the past year or so. That was a little different. But hopefully, I think we all can speak for this, but we're all looking forward to getting the fans back. And I think that really, that's so hard. I give these guys credit now that are doing it nowadays, man. That's got to be so hard to do it without the fans. And I've had no fans in the crowd before, but that's just because I didn't pay to come see us. So back on the indie dates, but yeah, man, that was really cool to do. Hopefully there's some more events we can do in the future. And yeah, I'd love to be in some kind of a backstage role sometime, not in front of the camera, but backstage. So yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. It felt really good. It felt like being home again. It felt great to be back.
That's great, bro. Really glad to hear that whole story. And I really do hope that Scott brings you in to work backstage, because I think, a wrestling mind like yours definitely needs to be utilized in a very important role. And what you're doing now with NwaTna is really great too. But, to be a part of Impact as well, that would just be, fantastic for you and the company and anyone that comes into contact with you there. So you've plugged a couple of things, but at this time, please, if there's anything else that you want to plug, maybe a pro wrestling tees store or a website, anything that you've got, please tell everyone out there where they can find you and what's going on.
Well, thank you, Carl, for asking. Best way to get in touch with me is on a Twitter. It's at AMW Wildcat. I try to check that and communicate with everybody with that. My wife has gotten me introduced to Instagram now, so I'm not the most technology kind of guy. She, as you probably know, because she had to set this up with you. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm on Instagram now at AMW Wildcat Chris Harris. I do have merch out there. I got a lot of merch that's becoming real popular. I got some T-shirts. I still have the action figures, the AMW DVDs. I got some shot glasses, some really cool stuff. But you can check all that out at amwwildcat.com. And then anybody interested in bookings for appearances, the signings, or anything to do with a wrestling event itself, you can contact www.lomopro.com, or I'm sorry, the Lomopro, TheLomopro.com. So you can get in touch with me for bookings on that. And yeah, man, anybody that wants to reach out to me, those are the ways to do it. So I love staying in contact with the fans, and being that I've been out of the game for so long. Are really into the depth of the game for so long. I love hearing the support, man, and it's fresh in my mind now because of what I just did with Impact. So it was kind of cool to see a lot of people come out and really appreciate that. And I'm glad people are still supporting Impact. Hopefully, I think they're teasing a lot of new stars. So hopefully some of these new faces or old faces from before, can come back. And, I hope nothing for the best, but Impact. And I try to stay up with the product as well, man. I try to check out a little bit of everything. I'm a big fan of AEW. I love what they're doing, and hopefully they keep going. I try to keep up with Ring of Honor, NWA Pros coming back. So yeah, a lot of big things, man. And I think again, once we get rid of this whole COVID stink, I think it's a great time in the wrestling business, man. There's, I hope, but nothing but jobs for everybody, man. I want everybody to be able to make a living doing this. And like I said, I'm glad I get to train some of the guys, and there's a lot of guys out there on the road now that are, struggling, since there hasn't been as many events going on. But yeah, there's a lot of places, man. There's a lot of opportunity out there for people to work. So I want everybody. I want a success for everybody, man. I mean, anybody that has their heart and soul into this business, and they can really, make a name for themselves, man. It's better for everybody. It's better for the wrestling world.
I agree, bro. 100%. Exciting times are ahead once we get through this bullshit that's going on. We're so close. I feel we're so close.
So close, man.
Wait. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see a rock concert again. I mean, it's been so long. Anyway,
or even sporting events. I mean, we can get a big crowd out of sporting events, and of course, wrestling, man. I mean,
Yeah.
The promotion here, we just started back. It's in Kentucky. There's still limitations in other states, but in Kentucky they kind of broke it off, and I think there's a number on capacity, but we were in a big area. The building we were doing was a big area, so everybody could spread out. But
Right.
our first event back just a few months ago was packed. So I think the people are ready, man. I think they want to see wrestling again. And as soon as we can start having our events again with no limitations, people are going to come out, man. And the guys are going to love it, because the feedback from the crowd, there's nothing like it, man. You know, to feed off the crowd and get that energy going, man. There's no high like it, man. It's awesome.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. And Chris, this brings us to my segment, 5-second frenzy. So it's like, I don't know how many, it's maybe 10 to 12 quick fire questions. It's about your favorite this, your favorite that. There's a few about wrestling, but the rest are about other things in life, because not everything in a wrestling interview has to be about.
Now I have to warn you, Carl, I've been hitting the head a lot. I've had some concussions. So you say rapid fire, but it may take me a few extra seconds to get some answers in here.
It's okay. I'm used to it. I've interviewed men even much older than you. So
All right.
I understand.
I'll give it a shot, though.
All right, Chris Harris, Wildcat Chris Harris. Here we go. 5-second frenzy. First question: who is your favorite wrestler?
Oh, wow. My first answer, I got two. I have to throw two out there. My first answer, growing up as a superhero, because they were superheroes to me, was Randy Savage. I was a Macho Man guy. That's the guy I watched growing up. Once I got in the business, started learning more about it and appreciating the work, it was Bret Hart.
Excellent decisions there. Those two are two of my favorites growing up as well. Who was your favorite opponent that you've had over the years?
Wow, man. That can't be a rapid fire. That's a whole nother conversation.
It's okay. You won't get in trouble. It's okay.
From start to finish, I would have to say, and even though this goes back to the Indies, you know, a lot of people didn't see these matches, but one of my favorite opponents was Abyss. We came up together, and we actually were so excited. We got to get in the ring with each other several times in TNA. So we actually got to, you know, get on pay-per-view and TV and stuff. So he was definitely one of my favorites. Storm was one of my favorites. You know, and then I had my own favorites with tag teams as well, but yeah, those I'd have to bring up some of those names, man, and got to throw Curt in there too, just because of my friendship with him. It was awesome to be able to work with him.
Absolutely, bro. Favorite? This is a tough one, I know, but favorite match you've ever had? I know it's a hard one.
Maybe if I had to pick one, let's start with the tag team. Maybe the 6 Sides of Steel with Triple X. That got so much attention. Even though it was a gimmick match, cage match, you know, it's still, we put so much into it. I think that that definitely stands out. Singles, I would have to say, you know, Storm, Texas Death Match, or even Jeff, that NWA title match I had with Jeff. You know, that meant a lot to me. That put me on the map. So a couple favorites there.
Excellent. And all those decisions there, I agree 100% that they, you know, if anyone wants to see the best of Chris Harris, those are the three you go to. Favorite book, getting away from wrestling, favorite book?
I would have to pick a autobiography of wrestling. I hate to go back to wrestling, but that was all I read forever. Maybe Mick Foley's, his first.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. He's a great writer. To this day, I mean, I complain about my concussions and remembering. I have trouble remembering things back in the day. I don't know how the hell that guy has put his body through all that and still remembers to tell stories like that. So I really enjoyed that book.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the first books that I ever had, like wrestling autobiographies when I was a kid. And
Right now, I'm in the middle of in between Jim Ross's books.
oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't had the chance to check them out, but I bet there's a wealth of information there.
Slobberknocker, I just got finished with, and getting ready to start Under the Black Hat.
Very nice. Okay, another one that's tough for a lot of people. Favorite TV show?
Ooh. Of all time, this is going to throw people off. My favorite TV show of all time was 24. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah.
That was one of my. I guess it was one of my favorites because there was a cliffhanger every time. It was action packed, and so many people that I got hooked on it. They got so pissed off because after every episode, they would have to watch another one. And you wind up watching hours of this TV. I mean, it was one of those. So I highly recommend that. A lot of people, nowadays they binge watch. That's one of those to go back to and watch. But I also have to throw out, as far as a sitcom, a comedy or anything like that, I'm a big Friends guy. Love Friends.
Very nice, very nice. And, in the past, I have been, there's been a spanner thrown in the works for that answer. Sabu said that his favorite TV show was like The Real Housewives of something or other. I couldn't believe
You got to be kidding me.
Of all people.
People.
He said that. Okay, the next one is another tough one. Favorite film?
I got to go with Rocky, man. I'm a huge Rocky fan, and it's hard to pick one. I'm just a fan of the whole series. That was a big motivation for me getting into wrestling, which is kind of crazy because it's boxing. But I actually became a fan of boxing first, and got my own pair of gloves as a kid and was boxing everybody, and somehow that transitioned into wrestling to where I became a wrestling fan. But as far as motivation and inspiration, Rocky, I mean, you watch that movie and you're ready to go tear somebody up. So, that's my favorite of all time, man.
Awesome, bro. The next one is favorite food.
My go-to cheat meal is pizza. I'm a pizza guy, man. I still try to keep a decent diet, nothing like what I used to, but about once a week, my wife and I will splurge. We'll order a pizza, man, and I tear that up.
We do get the answer pizza a lot on the show. But the next one is favorite place to eat on the road.
Let's see. I'll give two answers to this, to completely different sides of the spectrum, but I would say after the matches to go have a decent meal and have a nice drink, beer or whatever, is maybe an Applebee's, kind of like a sports bar, kind of like that, where you can get a decent meal but also have a drink with it and kind of share some time with the boys. But on the road, man, when you're riding hundreds of miles for hours at a time, you can only find so much on the road. And the go-to spot was Waffle House. I know a lot of people would be like, you got to be kidding me. But, man, I mean, we wrestled on holidays a lot of times, with their Thanksgiving or Christmas. We're back in the day, man, those were big wrestling dates. And there's nothing open on those days. So you find a Waffle House, and that was your meal for the night.
Yeah, we get Waffle House quite a lot.
Oh, okay. Surprising.
The third last one here for 5 Second Frenzy. Chris, what is your favorite alcoholic beverage?
I, for a long time, was a beer drinker. I was a beer drinker, maybe, throwing in a few shots along the way. I have to say, I got to blame that damn Curt Hennig for this, but he got me on that Jack Daniels, which, I've come to learn in all these years, that's a wrestler's drink. So I'm actually kind of proud of that. But I remember taking my first shot of Jack, And anybody that's heard stories about whether it's Curt or I think even Taker's adapted this, but Curt makes you gargle. He makes you gargle that stuff. And I remember him telling me to do that. This is Curt Hennig telling me. I'm hanging out with Curt Hennig, and he tells me to gargle it. I'm like, okay, I'll gargle it. We took our shot. He could tell I was just gonna swallow it. There ain't no way I'm gargling that shit. So I go to swallow it. He goozles me so that I can't swallow, and makes me gargle that jack. So that's something I've adopted, and now all the younger guys, whenever they want to try to hang with me, that's what I go to. I make them do the shots of jack, and I'll even make them gargle the first time.
Excellent stuff, man. 2 to go. The naughtiest one of 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite female body part. When you're going to check out a girl that's quite attractive, what's the first thing that your eyes will go to?
I'm an ass guy.
Fantastic.
I always go to the ass, man. A lot of people ask me about being a boob guy. I'm not a boob guy. Never have been. But man, love those asses.
I am down with that, bro. And the last one here on 5 Second Frenzy is your favorite curse word. I don't think you've sworn much tonight, but what is your favorite curse word?
Well, you always want to feel your host out. So I think most of the podcasts are pretty open. You can kind of say what you want, but no, if you turn me loose, man, I'm a fuck guy. But I've trained myself so well though. So if I'm in my surroundings, if I'm around where I feel like, okay, it's not appropriate here, I'm pretty good at taming myself. I can keep it under wraps, but yeah, if I'm hanging out with the boys, or hell, even my wife, I let it loose. That seems to be my go-to. I actually get in trouble from her because I'm a goddamn guy. And she's one of the, I'm one of those that I'm for, okay, I'm not damning God. That's not what I'm doing. You're asking God to damn something else. So that's my side of it. My wife is the complete opposite. She thinks you're damning God, so she hates when I say it. But yeah, those are my go-to.
Fair enough, bro. Well, some great answers there for 5 Second Frenzy. We come to an end here of the interview. Wildcat Chris Harris, and as usual, when I start to end the show, I like to once again put my guest up on a pedestal. And I became a fan of wrestling in 1998, and I watched WCW and the WWF during those Monday Night Wars. And once WCW had gone away and there was only WWF, I was so excited when I found out that this NWA TNA was taking place. And all these years later, it's 2021 now. It's, nearly 20 years since the birth of NWA TNA. But I wanted you to know that, from the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia, you had a fan over here, right here, that really appreciated everything you and your good buddy James did back then. And I just really hope that despite what happened in WWE and, not being able to come back and do any of those stories with TNA that would have really been awesome, I really hope that you're proud and you of everything that you've accomplished in the wrestling business, because all the way over here, somebody appreciated everything that you put into it, my friend.
Man, I can't tell you how much that means to me. I really appreciate that. Thank you for watching and being a fan and a supporter, because even from all the way over there in Perth, Australia, man, you were one of the guys that, kept us in business. Without supporters like you, who knows what would have happened. So I'm glad that me and the rest of the guys could entertain you. And thank you for being a wrestling fan. And, thank you for this, man. I really have enjoyed this. It's been great bullshitting with you and talking, going over some old stuff. So, thank you for being a supporter.
No worries, bro. Thank you so much. Again, I just appreciate your time today. And you know what? I was such a fan of yours that I did a bit of a Marty McFly. I went back in time to, the 1970s, and that's why we have the Perth Wildcats here. Okay, I'm just letting that one out there right now.
I do have to let you know, man. I've never been to Australia. I've heard nothing but it being a beautiful country. So if there's ever one place that I'd love to travel to, it would be there. But I do have to say, man, during some of my indie dates and even the WCW run, I was traveling with a buddy of mine. His name's Ashley Hudson.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if some people remember that name, but he was him and I were so close, traveling buddies. And the only city that I knew of in Australia was Perth. And that's because that's where he's from.
Yeah.
So he would always, show me pictures from back home with his family, and beautiful country. But it's funny that you say you're from Perth, man, because that's the only area I knew of from Australia. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Ashley's just like, I've been trying to track him down for a long time. I spoke to Air Paris and he's mentioned me to him as well, but he's from Perth, and he was in WCW, and I think there's another guy, Mark Mercedes from Australia. He wrestled in WCW a little bit back then, but there weren't many Australians in the 90s that made it over there and actually got to wrestle in the big leagues over there. So, that's one guy I want to track down because he is from Perth, and I think the conversation will be fun, even though he's been out of the business for so long. Yeah,
man, it's interesting because, I've missed having contact with him too all these years. And within this past, I was going to say year, but it may have been just in the past 6 months, I tracked him down and found him. So yeah, I'll pass that along to you, man. But yeah, he'd be great to talk to. Yeah, he's been out of it for a long time, and looking at some of his pictures and things, it looks like he's got a beautiful family. But he still lives here in the States. But I'd love to catch up with him sometime, and I think that'd be cool for you guys to catch up too, or meet, or however talk about Australia or wrestling or WCW. Yeah, we had a great time together, man. He's an awesome guy.
Awesome, bro. Well, enough of Ashley Hudson. This was about you. So, Chris Harris, again, thank you so much for your time, sir. And, this was just so much fun.
I appreciate it, man. I had a really good time. I loved it. And I know we probably went longer than what you're used to, but I didn't. There wasn't one moment where I was wishing this was going to end. So it was very cool to talk to you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my interview with Wildcat Chris Harris. What a fantastic conversation. I think we just went nearly 3 hours. So what a hell of a conversation we did, bro. We did it. And this is going to be going up on the WZWA Network on YouTube. Thank you to everyone out there for watching the Insider's Edge podcast. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia and Fury, alongside my new friend, Wildcat Chris Harris, and we will see you next time. Thank you.